Free reign, talk to me. We're gonna hit a beat and talk about my Eve. Everybody
Oh,
don't know what I say.
God.
I'm gonna do a beat.
Make it
Why,
stop.
Rain?
It's
Why?
time to stop.
Why did you?
Rock, paper, scissors, right? We don't want Eve to be as simple as shut the fuck up, Seto!
Floods of like memes, and these small gangers are like, we're the elite of the elite. Do not fuck with us. We will kill you. We are the best players ever. It's like, dude, I did your shit. I did it better than you did.
You know what this conversation is like? When I say not enough supers die in Delve, and people tell me, oh look, there's a super died in Delve. So it's like, when
What
I'm
are
talking
you
about
even
the balance
talking
issue,
about? We were talking about fucking balance, not supers
Yeah.
dying in Delph.
Look,
Why
look,
does
look.
everything with you have to be about supers fucking dying in
Shut
Delph?
up! Shut up!
Christ!
It's an analogy, moron. It's an analogy. Okay?
You guys stop arguing. You act like a fucking married couple. Jesus
No,
Christ.
don't stop arguing.
It's an
Well, it
analogy.
is Trash Talk
I
Tuesday.
was like,
Hello? I think now everyone should be able to hear me on the stream. Can the chat confirm? Chat, can you hear me on stream? Can you hear me? Can you hear everything? Everything? Alright. Villy, can you talk and see if chat can hear you too?
Yo, 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 chat, can you hear me?
Chat, can you hear Villy? They're saying that they can't hear me. Like, what? How would you know I was asking? How would you know if I was asking if you weren't hearing me?
Got him.
Come on, dudes. Anyways, welcome to Trash Talk Tuesday. Sorry, this stream is significantly scuffed, right? And that is because prior to the stream, my entire OBS was crashing. I don't know if you guys were watching last week, I had a couple issues with my OBS crashing. Well, today I couldn't even open the damn thing. It was just crashing nonstop. So, super fun times. But anyways, it's fixed. Kind of. We're live. We're broadcasting, and I'm going to try to put things on the screen so that you can see them. For now, I've got this lovely background that is now full screen. You're welcome. It's pretty, I know. So anyways, welcome to Trash Talk Tuesday. My name's Redline13. It's kind of a low-key show tonight. It's just me and Villy, which is actually kind of baller, if I'm being honest. We're like the two...
More alone time. Ooh.
Yeah, more alone time with Villy. We're like the two most knowledgeable dudes on the stream anyways, so it's going to be like a totally smart stream. I'm super excited for it. So anyways, Villy,
That's that is setting unrealistic expectations.
What do you mean?
I don't want to have to talk about shit and like know what I'm talking about.
Well, you don't have to know what you're talking about. Just sound like you know what you're talking about. And as long as you sound like you know what you're talking about, we should be
I'll
fine.
be like everybody else.
Yeah, exactly. And being like everybody else is okay. We just want to make sure that we're not worse than them, right? We just want to be as good as anybody else.
Something like that.
Yeah, and that's okay. It's fine. So anyways, I'm going to try to put some stuff on the screen here real quick because the big topic of the week is most obviously the Pochven news that we got today. How do we feel about that?
I mean, every person's going to feel a little bit differently about it, I imagine. Certainly, the Pochven is back in business, boys, is going to be an interesting dynamic shift, I guess. I don't know exactly how I would call it, but it's going to be one of those things where there's some people that are going to be happy that money's going to be made again in Pochven, and there's going to be some people that are going to be sad that money's going to be made in Pochven again, and there's going to be some people that are going to be happy that there's going to be people to hunt again. It's a little bit all over, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So like my big thing with it, my whole thought is like, this is what we said from the very beginning, is don't add these cooldowns to these sites. It doesn't make any sense. And I'm sure there was like CSM input on the back end saying the same thing, and they just ignored it. And then they thought, all right, well, we'll lower the cooldown a little bit. That didn't fix it. And so it got to the point where everybody decided that the shit that they had in Pochven wasn't important enough anymore, and it led to, you know, some structures getting killed. And the thing is, those structures, they can't be replaced. So it's like the bed already has the shit in it. so to speak. So I don't know if we're gonna see people flock back to Pochven. I
I
think
mean,
I
realistically, there wasn't that many Pochven structures that were destroyed throughout the course of this minor lapse in Pochven mechanics, right? Like the Fraternity now Vulafort is obviously the big one, but
mm,
I'm not tracking any other forts that were killed in this period. Just a couple uh, random Astras or Athenors or whatever they are, and that's really it.
yeah, but I mean the thing is that people would probably want to keep those things there if they had the choice, right? Or sell them.
Oh, I
But
mean, obviously, yeah, of course.
and if they're useful, then they care about them. It's just like nullsec space, where the reason we often cite that people don't fight over space enough is because space isn't really worth fighting over. But it's the same concept. They made Pochven worthless, and then nobody really cared, so they didn't form up big and huge to save things. And I mean, the Novella is a big one, though. But there is still the Scarcon Fort, I believe, which is nice.
They've been
And
trying.
yeah, well, I
Yeah, the
know,
Scarcon Fort's been enforced 3, 4 times, I think, but
There's been some big
obviously,
fights over it too, not just like shield timers and nobody shows up. Like there's been not like massive, but there's been fights over it. They've definitely been trying.
yeah, and
definitely
I
some
know,
relevant content, let's say.
yeah, for sure. I know there was a big one over over one of those armor timers where Frat brought like 900 people or something like that. That was a while back though.
Yeah, I mean, good for Frat, I guess. That's a
Well, not anymore because that Fortizar is gone now. The new speaker is Awali. Awali, who are you? Where do you come from?
Hi,
Welcome.
I'm a CEO in Horde. Um, Run a small little furry corp. Uh,
Awesome.
oh boy.
Friends with some dudes. Hi, Billy.
Very good question. Do you have access to the Horde blacklist?
Unfortunately,
Yeah, can you take names off of it?
no, not
All
that
right.
cool.
All right, we'll wait for the next one. Wait for the next one. So anyways, you're a CEO
Keep
in
shooting your
Horde.
shots, Redline.
Hey, I'm gonna keep trying until it works, you know what I mean? That's kind of how it goes. Um
Do.
so Awali, did you do any kind of like Poshvin stuff before the nerf happened?
Yeah, that's why I hopped in. A bunch of my corp dudes in Horde. Like Horde had a pretty strong presence there among other groups. Yeah, it was a pretty serious source of income for us.
Are you going back?
I mean, I think everybody's trying to figure that out, right? Um, Horde had a pretty big presence there. They don't really anymore. I mean, obviously we have the Scarcon Fort and stuff, but in terms of like the SIG existing, it's basically been on hiatus since the changes. So, you know, if all our friends go back, yeah, probably.
Nice. And
I
I
mean,
mean,
we basically stopped going there. I mean, the 35-minute timer thing was kind of dumb because now it's just all like multi-box Ishtar fleets taking all the sites. It's not really worth like sitting there.
right. And now, do you think that those people that have been there, while the nerf was existing, that they've kind of built a foothold that it's going to be hard to overcome?
Well,
Or is it
keep in
just going to be like a
mind
steamroll when you build it back up?
The multi-boxed Ishtar fleets that were there were people that were in Horde as part of Horde's SIG, and there were like disagreements basically
Yeah,
about like how that SIG should operate. So I
yeah,
imagine
I
they'll stick
remember.
around. I imagine they'll stick around. Because I mean, even when Horde had a big presence, we weren't running 24/7, 365, and the Ishtar fleets basically existed anytime we weren't out in Apex fleets or whatever.
Yeah. And as far as like, sorry, I don't mean to just like pick your brain entirely about Poshun. I was genuinely curious if anybody's going to be, trying to go back. Billy,
Yeah, I
are
mean, I
you
think
going to go back?
if Horde makes an effort to go back there, my corp isn't big enough to just go there on our own. Really, we're like 10, 15 dudes. I mean, we could like multi-box it hard, but like we do other stuff too. So if Horde reestablishes like an active presence there, we will definitely be getting back involved with that. Yeah, it's really good money.
But
Even
you
with
could do
like
that too.
what was that?
You could establish the presence there with Horde.
Yeah. I mean, I do a lot of stuff, so
Bring it back. Maybe if you get more responsibility, they'll give you access to remove names from the blacklist. And
I have a hard time in this game doing like one thing always. I'm super ADHD and Eve, so
oh, gotcha,
I
gotcha.
have a hard time being like, I'm gonna be the Pochven guy, or I'm gonna be like the super fleet FC, or like, you know what I mean? Like it's very hard to like put my brain to something like that. Being a
Sure,
CEO
that
of a
makes
bunch of
sense.
nerds is enough work, honestly.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Definitely a bit of work. There's no doubt about that.
Are you the CEO of your corp, Billy?
Yes.
Nice.
Not that my corp's work, but
You said not that your corp's work? Oh, I understand.
not that
I
my corp
gotcha.
is a lot of work.
Yeah, your corp kind of
Although-
runs itself.
Correct.
I mean,
I've done the other side.
That's a good way for it to be. Billy, did you do any of the Pochven stuff, or did you kind of stay away from that?
I tried to generally stay away from it. Yeah.
Honestly, the worst part about Pochven, like the timers nerf, is like, you know, a lot of people complain about like the money income and stuff like that. Like it's a huge like ISK creation place, but also like when you have like 5 competing groups roaming around in Apex fleets constantly vying for control, like it was at least once a week we were getting like heavy armor brawls over like a site. You know what I mean? Like fun fights.
Yeah.
So that was definitely like a downgrade in content for us. You know what I mean? That small scale fighting. So you don't really get that in nullsec, like the heavy armor, you know, paladins and Lashaks and Nesters brawling at 0 on top of each other in like big blocks in nullsec. So Pochven was definitely like a break from that, you know.
Yeah, I mean, so so who's there right now? Like, who's still there? Because I know there's some like goon groups, or at least one goon group, and then the multi-boxers that split off from Horde. Who else is actually in
I don't think
Pochven?
there's anybody actually like really there anymore, to be
Yeah, I
honest.
think that's pretty much it. Yeah. And yeah, I mean Strybog Clade, which is like I guess like half goons or totally goons or not goons, like um yeah, there's not really anybody there. Even if you go like set up a gate camp or something in Pochven, like you're only gonna catch people using it as a highway, not
Mhm.
like people living in Pochven, you know.
Yeah. And I mean, I did the same thing. I was doing some guerrilla ratting where I just, go from system to system using filaments, and I was just using Pochven as a highway to get back to high sec, which is fantastic.
I have heard, but not seen it myself, but apparently the OBS nerf was really great for people that like to mine in Pochven, because they get some pretty nice rocks to shoot, you know what I mean? Having less people there was apparently pretty nice for mining, from what I've heard. There's some groups that were like doing some like ninja mining in the sites.
And that's the opposite of what CCP wants, of course. Hello, this is Kenna.
Hello, Kenna. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So Kenna, what do you do in as far as Pochven goes? You're in Pochven, right?
Yeah, I've been involved in Pochven on and off for at least a year and a half. I was on the Goons, UPG, Strybog side when the original structures fell, and then with the recent, sort of recent battleship brawls before the whole thing died out. Thanks, CCP. We are excited to get back in. Also known as a rabid rock muncher.
Nice. So, question for you. So, as a
Mhm.
goon, do you have access to the goon blacklist?
I'm not actually a goon, I'm a nit, but I worked with them, so just little technicality. No, I don't have blacklist. Sorry.
All right, fair enough. No worries, no worries. We gotta ask everybody.
One
But
day,
no,
Redline.
one day. So Pochven is not a ZZZ topic, Thanos, because look, here's the thing. Pochven created an environment where smaller groups could go and flourish. They could make a bunch of money, and they could get in nice little fights. Probably, I don't know what the biggest fight I saw there was, maybe like 60, 65 people, and that was like 3 or 4 fleets fighting all at once.
Yeah, I mean, even Horde that, you know, obviously likes to bring a lot of people to fights, the logistics of Pochven made it kind of hard to do. Like, obviously, we would try to bring people. I think the time I can remember is like Horde formed Kiki's or whatever when there was a heavy armor brawl going on. But like, for the most part, I can count a couple times that we were in heavy armor fights and like Horde lost because they're small scale fights, right? You're talking like 20-man roaming fleets roaming around, and we lost a lot of those fights against those smaller flourishing groups that like lived there actively.
Well,
Yeah.
and a part of that, if you don't mind me interjecting, is because of the fitting differences between our groups. Like one group was using amuleted pods, the other one wasn't, and a lot more budget paladins were on Horde side from what we
Yep.
gauged looking at the battle reports, and so saving money unfortunately ended up costing a lot of money in that regard. It's my gauge is it's similar to wormhole environments where you're able to make a lot of ISK, which means that people who want to fight can fund fighting. Like, if they want to be there for the sake of having a good bash, they can make the money back, get the ships back, and get back in fighting a whole lot sooner than they can in nullsec. And I think that was the appeal for the Goon side, UPG and Strybog in particular, and some of the Horde groups too. I don't know specifically. Sorry, ramble.
No, it's definitely true. It's definitely accurate. Yeah, the fighting while PvEing was definitely like the appeal of Pochven, I think, for a lot of people, especially in the null groups that maybe weren't living there full time, but like
Mm-hmm.
I would basically take week trips to Pochven, you know what I mean? I would still play in nullsec, but I would go into ScarCon or whatever and hang out for like, 4 or 5 days and basically go on a safari, and hang out and get in the fights and stuff like that. And the super dynamic because Pochven's all pipes, right? So it's
Right.
super fun, like trying to keep track of other fleets and like getting caught in your paladin fleet or you catch their paladin fleet and like both sides trying to get more people there, and the logistics are really hard to do that because it's all pipes and there's dictors on
Mhm.
every gate. Like some of the most fun gameplay I've had in Eve on like the smaller scale was in Pochven. So I'm happy to see that CCP has maybe allowed that to happen again.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% there. And we are our comms have been fuck yeah all day about this news. So hopefully we've got some other groups saying the same thing that we can have a good time with.
Yeah, I'd love to see Horde go back and start that up again. It'd be really cool.
And now, see, all of this excitement, I should be happy about this, but do you have any idea how pissed off it makes me that you guys are so excited about going back into Pochven? And it's not because you're excited, it's because you have a reason to be excited. Because CCP killed the region for no fucking reason, didn't fix whatever problem they set out to fix, and there's nothing to stop them from doing that to any other region or Pochven again, and I hate it.
Yeah.
We're fully aware. Fully aware.
I mean, the debates over like the ISK faucet or whatever, depending on your perspective, can be valid, but like there are ways to attack that other than nerfing the respawn, right? You could just make the sites pay out. You could just make them pay out less, right? Like,
Right, which is something we've been saying for literal years.
pretty
It's
much
like,
every
yeah.
Pochven group said that. Like, just
Yeah.
make them pay out less if that's the problem. Like, don't get
Yeah.
rid of them completely.
And that'd be so easy to change compared to fucking respawn timers.
Yeah, I mean, it'd just be a line in a database, right?
Yep. They've known about it for years, but
Because the money is crazy good, especially if you get into the fleets where you're running 2-3 characters, you're easily over $1 billion ISK an hour. Given again, you have to fight for it. You know what I mean?
right.
So,
I still remember
it's
when
not
we bought
free.
out I still remember when we bought out all the abyssal armor plate rolls that we could get out of Jita because we were just pouring it in and say, well, if we're gonna fight Horde, we don't want to lose our ships. Let's build up our buffer and cleared out Jita. Like we were going crazy.
Well, I hope that you guys can get back to that sooner rather than later.
Mhm.
And this is my last question about Pochven, unless Akaroth or Vili have anything to chime in about it before we move on to the next one. So with knowing that this region can just change on a whim at a moment's notice, do you think that changes the level of investment that like your people are going to be willing to put into Pochven? Like,
I don't think so. Pochven logistics are like, I say they're hard like in an active fight, but they're pretty easy if there's not anything going on, honestly, with the filaments and stuff. It's really not hard to like get ships in and out. It's just hard to like form a fleet somewhere else and come into Pochven actively, but like if you're leaving Pochven, I mean, at least my corp, we left shit there for like months after the nerf happened, and people just like slowly moved stuff out as like wormholes spawned. With NPC stations, it makes it a lot less risky, right? So you can just like wait. It's not like you're gonna lose a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, the NPC station actually did a lot of good for Pochven to make up for all those structures getting deleted. And regarding assets being there, but for the most part, it's, you know, ships and the modules on the ships that can be shipped out again and sold at Jita again, you know, with much crying about it, of course, but it's nothing that's truly irreplaceable. We can't, you know, land down 20 structures that get blown up, for instance. And Pochven is really easy to get to, probably one of the easiest places to get to in the game from somewhere else. You know, keep your death clone somewhere else, take a filament in, just stock up on them. Like, it's really not that hard to get there.
Yeah, and most of the groups have, at least Horde does, like a relatively reliable shipping service. You know what I mean? Which is, of course, just all DSTs. But I assume all the other groups have similar. It's really not hard to do. It's just the last moment logistics that get complicated if you like need to reship in a fight. But in terms of like putting assets there just to exist or to remove them is like not an issue we encountered really because of the NPC station specifically. Because you're not on any timetable like a Fortizar dying or something.
Yeah, and it was that warp speed nerf that, and you know, no local bubbles on gates that slowed down reshipping more than trying to get more ships and piles of ships in the NPC stations. It was the warp speed penalty that slowed the reshipping.
And every group has 100 dictors on every gate.
And so go ahead.
Sorry. I was just going to say, yeah, I'm kind of curious how it'll come back, just in the same way that we've seen with other drastic changes like this in the past, and then that were reverted, which the main one that comes to mind is like things like Blackout. But like, I'm curious if there's some people that are just like, you know, I'm just not going to put the effort into going back. Like, I assume that a lot of people will because they haven't changed the money. And so now it's just
the money is
doing whatever you were doing.
Ridiculous. The money is insane. I think that alone, even if people are only there for a month and CCP rug pulls us again, the amount of money you can make in a month in Pochven is just like, it's absurd.
Yeah, and I hope that brings people into PvP, you know, to fight for the right to grab. Like, that's, you don't really get that anywhere else.
Yeah, it was the best part. Like, you know, I can, you know, every group was like trying to waterboard other groups on the other side of the triangle. So they, not even to fight them every time, but just finish the site, go to the next one before they can even get to you with the warp speed nerfs and stuff, you know, like super dynamic and competitive. At least at its height. Like there were quite a few groups, and there would be, you know, 3-4 Apex fleets, all of different alliances competing for a limited amount.
Yeah, those were glory days.
And for anybody, I guess I never actually explained it. For anyone who doesn't know what we've been talking about this whole time, they reverted their nerfs on Pochven, where there were cooldowns, and now there are no longer cooldowns.
I think we'll see. I think we'll see a lot of the people who do kind of follow that kind of content anyway. Like I saw the incursion group within Horde get a lot more busy after all that happened.
Yep, agree. Yeah.
I think, you know, you may see that quiet back down as people drift over. Maybe not. Maybe there's enough people for everything, but I don't know about that.
To be honest, like my corp, we all shifted to running fucking crab beacons, and that's really just like boring. It's you know what I mean? Like occasionally you'll get dropped or whatever, but like it's just doesn't hit the same brain chemicals that like fighting in an Apex fleet does in Pochven. You know what I mean? And the money isn't as good, right? Like even if you're running a super running crab beacons, like it doesn't even come close to Pochven income. Not to mention the fun of doing it. So.
Yeah, for all we do in Eve to avoid risk, it's stuff that involves risk that gets us more invested in the game and having a good time.
Yeah, I mean, for most experienced Eve players, making money while getting your PvP is like the best of both worlds, right? Because even if you're not winning sites, you're usually at least having fun trying to get the sites.
All right, so I'm gonna do something that might break the stream.
Crab beacons definitely doesn't come close to Pochven. Like someone in chat was saying, like crab beacons top out around like 600, 700 an hour with a super. Like you can easily, with the same amount of characters in Pochven, get like $1.5 billion an hour.
That's insane. So the money is out there if you just want to go and get it.
You gotta fight for it though. There's no
We're talking
Mhm.
same amount of characters, right? Like obviously you
Yeah.
can scale up beacons more than you can in Pochven. You could run like 6 supers and run 6 independent beacons, but like character for character, like it's hard to beat Pochven. A single character in Pochven can make as much as a dread running a beacon.
Mhm.
So
It's just that risk of fighting over it. So
you're good. I was just gonna say Hycorian is saying that you can make 1.5 bill an hour with 2 tunes.
Yeah, in Pochven, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're getting 250 mil per character per site, and you can run 4 of them an hour if you're dominating the triangle easily. Yeah,
Mhm.
easily. Yeah, that's like I wouldn't say the low end, but yeah, like 1.5 with 2 characters is doable. Yeah.
Especially with the logistics of the Ishtar groups, even though they weren't taking fights, they were able to use the filaments and the wormholes and just hop, skip, jump around and really ramped up the income.
Right, like
Unfortunately, they didn't have to fight for it anymore, but they're working the system like it could be worked. So
right. I mean,
kudos.
that's why people complain about Pochven, right? Is because the money is so easy. It's like, yeah, you
Mhm.
can make a shit ton more money than basically any other activity than like high end C5 ratting, right? Like with very minimal effort, assuming you know how to fight, you know,
Mhm. Or avoid the fights.
or avoid the fights. Yeah, if you're just in a super fast doctrine and just running the sites before they get to you, yeah, like 1.5 in 2 tunes is like not that insane.
No,
Ooh, we
definitely
might
not.
get to hear from Content about this.
Yeah, I do want to hear from Content about this. Content, how do you feel, dude? Your baby's back.
I think CCP is stupid.
I agree. Hard agree. But are you excited to go back and get your money, or are you gonna go back?
I think so. I haven't been listening to anything. I just saw that you were live, and I was like, all right, Pochven, let's go.
Yeah, no, yeah,
Um,
we've been talking about how, we're excited to get back into Pochven and see how it all shakes up now. If anybody, when people come back, talking about that kind of stuff and kind of the investment. And oops, I fixed the stream. Boom.
so I think part of the problem is that it's going to be really, really hard to contend with the people that have been there farming for ES for like 5 months now. So, I'd
Why?
actually be why you ask?
Yeah.
So for one, they have an intel advantage. They have eyes in every system, right? They have the infrastructure they built up over, I think it's about like 9 months now that it's been a thing.
Since it
Um,
was nerfed?
even before that. So
Okay.
even before the nerf, Horde was having a hard time, for example, with the multi-boxers. They were camping
They're fucking
systems in,
annoying.
and
They're annoying
yeah,
as hell.
No,
yeah.
don't tell them that. You know they're watching.
No,
Well,
it's
they
fun.
know.
It's part of the fun. I mean,
You can respect your enemy.
They
Yeah.
got
Exactly.
the spies, they got the relays, they got the intel, right? It's going to be really hard to do pretty much anything outside of just Ishtar's online, which I mean is kind of how it was before for groups like Horde, but even that's going to be rough, man. Like the base Ishtar fleet runs so slowly that you can actually end up getting pushed by the multi-boxers pretty easily.
And see that
Um,
that just
The,
doesn't
the
make any sense to me.
in my
Because
experience, like with the Ishtar fleets, though, is like if you have an actual fleet, the Ishtars can't touch it. Like you just sit in the site, and if they come in, you just kill them or they run. Like they can't fight like an actual comp because they're multi-boxing.
yeah, I mean, it seems to me like you'd simply be able to just form a proper fleet and kill them.
Yeah, if
Like
you
it,
have an Apex fleet and you're in an OBS, the Ishtar fleets aren't like touching you whatsoever.
if you form an well, I mean, if Horde
Because
formed an
they were
Apex
around
fleet,
before the nerf. Like these guys existed before the nerf.
yes, but not in the same team, right? So you've got a bunch of the ex like Strybog FCs are now with them as well. So that's going to be an
They've
extra
definitely
like
grown. Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
40
they're definitely.
paladins. Like
Yeah,
you can look at the BR from earlier today, one of the first sites that Strybog went out and ran. I don't know if it's been brought up yet, but they got attacked by 3 multi-boxer fleets.
damn.
Guess I can find it.
I know you posted it in cesspool earlier, but it was long
did.
ago. And you said the word babe, so if you search for your name and babe, probably the first message. Look at that, there it is.
Yeah, so in that BR, I think it was 3 people. So 3 of the multi-boxers out of the like 10 people they have through various time zones
ooh,
are
that's
on the
right.
left side.
Yeah. Holy Vargers, holy shit.
Yeah.
that's literally 3 players, like, and they've been
Yeah,
doing
that's
this for
3
months
people.
and months.
Dora.
So it's Dora, Uncanny, and then Yelneros, who's ex-Strybog.
Gotcha.
And that's not even all their ships. I know that Yelneros can run more than that.
But they've got to be less effective than the similar amount of humans doing it, right?
Of course,
Jeez.
but
Yelneros
gonna
is
be-
a very good player.
Unless they're like input broadcasting, like 40 actual humans should be able to beat 40 characters multi-boxed, 8 characters a
And
person.
now here's the problem. Even if you do beat them, I don't imagine they'd care. They'd just come back with the exact same comp over and over. Like, they haven't been starved for ISK, they've just been starved for content. So you give them content, they're going to keep coming back, right?
I mean, I'll take
Or
free
more
Varger
shit.
kills. Yeah, I'll take a free
And-
Varger fleet.
And so that's kind of what you mean when you say that they've built up this kind of wealth that allows them to just keep coming back. But I mean, if you
It's a
keep
pretty
killing them,
incomprehensible amount of wealth. Like, we're talking trillions and trillions every month, right?
But I mean, it's
Really?
like the argument they're just going to keep
Yes.
feeding us Vargers because that sounds pretty lit.
No, I don't think they're going to keep feeding you Vargers. I think they're going to actually form real comps if they end up losing. Like,
Right,
you
but
can't
like-
underestimate these people, right?
No, yeah, I mean, I know who they are. I'm just saying, like, 3 people multi-boxing with 40 actual humans, like, how can they keep up with, like, Logi and an actual commune? Are they going to be multi-boxing 4
broadcasting.
nesters with... Well, right.
Well, they're not
Okay.
input broadcasting. And also,
Oh.
we've done that before.
I'm just trying to comprehend, like, 40 characters with, like, nesters and guardians and shit, like, catching reps as fast as 40 actual humans do.
There's also the problem of EOS spam. Doesn't matter if you're boxing or if you're broadcasting or not, right? It's still going to just be a shit ton of DPS at the press of a button. So there's an A- somewhere on Reddit, I think it was, showing they had like 50 EOSs in the same system or something like that earlier today.
jeez.
So that's a lot of DPS, right?
And so,
yes.
what do you think this is going to be? So obviously these guys are going to fight for their sites.
Sounds fun.
That does sound fun. Hey,
It's-
content, just do you have access to the Goon blacklist?
I think
Like-
everybody does. in
Like to
Goons.
remove names?
No.
And there's a question everyone was waiting for.
I'm sure you could get into Strybog though. Easy.
next time. We'll get him next time. All right. Well, Joseph, do you have anything else to say about Pochven, my friend?
As someone who didn't really participate much in Pochven, nope.
All right, cool. Well, I'm happy to move on to the next topic. Oh, a D scan. Should I put that on the
Look at that
screen?
D-scan.
If you want to.
Yeah, I mean, I
Just an
can.
example of what they had in one
8
system.
nesters is pretty spicy, yeah.
Good God! And this is the multi-boxers? No, this is
Yes.
not just the multi-boxers, though. I would say
Uh,
because
If
it's
that's
from the
like 3
battle
or 4
report, right?
people, I'm very impressed.
I'm pretty sure it was just them. I don't.
I know
see
they're
anything that
good
would
though.
knock them.
They're serious players. Like they aren't a joke. They're not
They
bad
didn't-
multi-boxers.
Well, and
Gulashaks.
yeah, they've been doing this for months and months, and part of the reason they roll the abyssal plates is so they've got time to switch to the Logi and catch reps. They know they're multi-boxing. They need the buffer they can get.
Yeah, that's just them.
Mhm.
So I mean, I don't know.
But this wasn't in a fight, right? This was just in
No,
space.
they were camping. So what happened is 3 of the observatory flashpoints. So all of them spawned in one system.
Oh,
So they showed up to camp it, and then kill anyone that came.
and then they multi-box
Got it.
the sites, right?
I think actually Pando showed up in like Drekavax, and they gave him an actual fight against one of the fleets. I think that BR is kicking around somewhere too.
That I hadn't heard of.
I'll find the BR. Hold on.
Yeah, I mean, like this sounds cool to me. I mean, win or lose, you know what I mean? Like it sounds like an
It's
interesting
count-
engagement.
It's content, so people got to enjoy it.
Yeah, and they welcome fights and they love fights. It's why they're there. They're hoping for more of it. So, come in and give them a challenge. They love it, and it's good for
Right,
all of us.
Right, like giving them a fight and them coming back doesn't sound like a downside to me, you know?
All right.
Oh, this was just today.
Yeah, that was that setup. So they had all those fleets there, and they decided to give Pando a fight against one of the fleets.
Cool.
EOS fleet.
Yeah, just against
Eh.
one multi-boxer.
It looked like this. This is what the battle report looked like.
Yeah.
It's very red on one side and very
Yeah,
not
yeah,
red
they-
on the other.
Well,
They got the one guy, but then you're kind of relying on their willingness to give you the fight, right? I mean,
Well,
Yeah.
to a general point there, that's where the ultimate truth is. You have a situation or a place that people want to farm ISK, and people, multiple alliances or corporations want to be a part of it. You're gonna be able to create that kind of a content and result. Players
Well,
are
that's what it
happy.
used to be like too. I mean, these guys have definitely gotten better since the nerf, right? But that's
for
what was
sure.
like the best part about Pochven was these small scale. I mean, 98 people on D-Scan, you know what I mean? Small scale ish fights. Pretty
Mhm.
rare to like have tie dye or anything in Pochven. It's happened occasionally on like the Scarcon fights, but like most of these brawls were just straight up brawls, you know?
And
I just think you're gonna find that the content maybe isn't quite as fun as you would hope once they start camping you into station, right? A lot of these guys don't like Horde very much, for example. So I don't
For
know. It'll be
sure,
interesting
yeah.
to see.
For sure, yeah. It'll be
And that's
interesting
not
to
like
see how
me
it
making it
develops.
up. They
Yeah,
did it
no.
before, right? So
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it develops, right? I don't know that Horde has announced any intentions one way or the other.
Oh, Gobbins is already like, all right, we're gonna get in there and do Ishtars as much as we can, right? So
Fuck
is
yeah.
he?
I mean, more people
Yeah.
in Pochven is good. Yeah, more people in Pochven should be good, right?
It was in their Discord. I mean,
I am down to feed any day of the week.
I don't know
Also,
about that.
Corlax did have a question. Corlax, I hope you're still here. I didn't see your question pop up. But Corlax asked about the standings, and I don't actually know the answer to this question. Is it possible to do trig content without screwing up standings one way or the other? It's
Yes.
not, is it? It is?
Yeah. Yeah.
How?
The side. What do you mean screwing up standings? I guess.
Well, he's talking about traveling in high sec essentially. So I'm
Okay,
assuming
yeah.
not getting
Edencom
attacked
system.
by
Edencom systems are
Africanized
bad.
trig rats and Edencom rats.
Edencom systems, yeah. If you're farming in Pochven, then yeah, Edencom systems.
No, it's
are-
perfectly possible to avoid
yeah.
getting negative with Edencom. It's just going to require a lot of like farming sleepers on your part. That's all.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm a nullsec player, so it's like, oh no, Edencom and highsec.
Yeah, I think all my characters are like neg 10 to Edencom. I linked the Goblins message in Twitch.
The amount of times that like Edencom
Fair.
has been relevant in my life is like pretty much zero.
Oh.
Yeah, that
Well,
once in a
after-
while though.
Well, after everyone pretty much got their the Thunder Child and Stormbringer blueprints, it was pretty much okay. Yeah, they're not exactly a fleet doctrine that's used by too many. So it just points out that it's more prevalent to be part of the Triglavian side and have those better standings anyway.
Yeah, and the Africanized like Edencom rats aren't like that insanely bad. Like if you're going through the system and you just like warp, it's usually not a problem. In those godforsaken times, you decide to be in high sec for whatever reason.
Well, some people live in high sec, you know.
That's sad.
Why is it sad? What's wrong with high sec?
It does happen though.
I live
It
in
does
high
happen.
sec.
It does happen.
I live in high sec. There's nothing wrong with that.
Says you.
I do.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I mean,
That's the first I've heard.
No, it's fine. It's just it depends on what you do. If you just, do nothing, then
well,
yeah.
like even if you live in high sec though, like Edencom systems aren't like every system, right?
Right. There are some key pipelines though, but you can avoid them with some extra work.
I mean, I've gone through Edencom systems on all my characters. I've never died in high sec to Edencom ever, so I don't know.
Likewise.
There's some that have spicy gate rats where it's thick enough you can't even cloak MWD.
Yeah, there are some situations where you'll die, but like,
Mhm.
just like I don't know,
It's not that
exercise
often,
those brain cells, right?
yeah. Blood brain cells, they're all zapped.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'll tell you what. Speaking of brain cells, I got some fights that I picked up some battle reports on over the past week, and the first of them is one that happened in OJT TAC J3. Does that system sound familiar to you guys at all?
It does.
Yeah.
It does? Why? Tell me, why does that sound familiar to you?
Isn't that where that
Is that
Vendetta
the Dread Bomb?
and Revenant died?
It is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
It is.
I was there.
You were there. What happened here, man?
I was on the initial drop. Not even. You look in there. There's an Awali and an Archon somewhere. It was a proper dread bomb. I mean, this.
Yeah, but
The
like,
VR
what
makes it
what
hard
happened
because
with
all
it,
those
though?
supers weren't there originally. It
Right.
was a standard. There's me and the Archon. It was a standard dread bomb. I mean, a very well executed dread bomb. From my perspective, I forget what day that was. It was a couple days ago.
Yeah.
3 beers deep, playing War Thunder. Sitting on the undock in a carrier, just doing umbrella things, waiting for somebody to scream that they're dying, kind of thing.
And then someone screams
Someone
that they're
screams
dying,
that they were dying,
and
yeah.
they still fucking
And-
die.
And we, so the person that screamed that they were dying did not die, so op success.
Oh.
Yeah, the person screaming that they were dying did not, in fact, die. So what happened, Pancrab was up. I mean, we're up most of the time. Get report of, like, some bombers or something, inhib anchoring, jump the response in. Fatal mistake, light on faxes. I think we went in with, like, 4 faxes initially. Like 7 supers and 5 carriers, I think, was the initial drop, something like that. Yeah, the AAR they linked was pretty good in chat.
Damn it. I was gonna read portions of it as though it was my own thoughts.
Well, the only reason I say that is I actually recorded the drop, and Deepwater actually used audio quotes from my video in their video, pretty much. Like, all their horde comms were from my video. Yeah, we dropped, and then within, I don't know, a minute of us dropping, 2 nags landed, and it was like, that's a little weird. And then,
Yeah.
5 seconds later, there were, I think, was 26 dreads, I think, was the total count.
Sounds about right.
And it was, I mean, it was a proper dread bomb. It caught us by surprise. You know what I mean? Dread bombs don't really work if you're expecting them to happen, right?
Yeah, I mean, looks like they had, how many dreads did they have here?
I want to say it was
24.
about 26. 24 might be right, yeah.
24 on
24,
the
yeah.
24 on the BR.
Yeah, I think they got like 2 of them out or
So
something.
to give you like a little sequence of events, essentially, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of these parts, I read the various AARs that I saw floating around Reddit, but essentially the people who were baiting this vendetta, and I think the Revenant, I don't think the Revenant was being baited. It's just a bonus, right?
I think the
Revenant
Revenant was the target. The Vendetta
vice
was the Vendetta was the consolation prize. Yeah,
Gotcha.
the Revenant is what they were going for. If I haven't spoken to them, but that's what they say, and I mean,
Yeah,
I don't know that you drop
they say
150
some
bill on
things.
dreads to kill like 2 regular supers, right? Like, you're going for the faction supers.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
But
I
basically,
mean,
it was so
it's not
they-
abnormal for Horde to have faction supers on like a Pancrab drop, right? That's not like a secret.
No, so
You can
they
look at,
jumped
like, any BR.
on a super doing a crab beacon, and then they jumped in standing comms according to their AAR and told Horde Standing to undock from the Keepstar and bubble the undock, which they did, and then
That part's not true.
That's not true.
No, so they just had a couple.
It was
The
alts.
people,
It was spy alts.
people
It's
that
Horde.
bubbled were them.
Yeah, it's Horde. How hard is it to get a fucking hit?
Yeah, they had
Horde?
3 blue spy Hictors that they
Yeah,
just.
it was
used to
fucking
bubble
thanks
the undock.
FC, the corp that
And then they
accepts
just kind of
any-
memed about how it was just people that.
Yeah,
followed
no,
Horde.
it was them. But
Hey,
yeah,
hold
we
on. You said thanks FC accepts anyone?
It's Horde,
They're on the
Pandemic
blacklist.
Horde Incorporated.
main corp
yeah.
Horde, yes.
Yeah, there's no ESI checks or anything. Yeah, they accept anybody.
The only thing they check is, are you blacklisted, yes or no?
That
Next
rules
one.
you.
Get the next one.
So it was like there were like 4 Hicks and like 2 of them were like some renter corp, and 2 of them were like in Thanks FC or something. But yeah, it was definitely spies. It was not like they did not get on standing comms.
There was no real confusion about it. Everybody understood what was happening.
Getting AWACS'd in Horde is not that crazy of a concept. Like, everybody's like, yeah, obviously those Thanks FC Onyxes bubbling the undock are not actual players. You know what
Well,
I
it
mean?
wasn't actually Horde Onyxes, if I recall. It was some Renter Corp.
It was a mix, like you said.
It was a mix. It was 2 Thanks FC and 2 Renter Corp. There were actual Thanks FC Hictors bubbling the undock.
But I mean, all that's to say they were spy characters. And
They were spies, yes. They were
I'm
obvious.
assuming they've all been
Someone in
removed
chat
from
said
their
if you look at
respective
the
groups,
Hicks,
right?
they're obvious. Yeah, they're
Yeah,
obvious
they're all
spy
long
alts,
gone.
yeah. obvious spy ults. Yeah, we
And
drop
so-
and we had Titans on grid within 2 minutes, but I mean in a 24-person dread bomb with, I think we had 4 or 5 faxes on grid. Like it just the faxes are irrelevant in that kind of situation, right?
And when your supers are not tank fit either.
Yes, they are, except for the Revenant and the Vendetta, apparently.
The ones that died were not tank fit.
The ones that mattered.
They are supposed to be tank fit.
But I would say it's 24-man dread bomb. If you're
Even
not tank fit, you're just gonna eat shit.
To be completely honest, I think even if the Rev and Vendetta were tank fit, they probably still would have died.
The Revenant.
Because we didn't have enough faxes on grid. Like we were just very
without a doubt, one of them would have died for sure. I think if the Vendetta was fully tank fit, it'd be 50-50.
Yeah. I started recording a video basically as soon as there were dreads on grid. Just that nice hotkey. And based on my video, we had Titans on grid within like a minute and 40 seconds, pretty much.
Yeah, I've actually got the
It's like-
video playing on stream right now from, I think this is the Big AB video, where the response is coming in now.
Yeah.
And so these dreads, they jump in fully preparing to die.
Of course.
Like these
yeah.
are suicide.
That's the whole point.
Factions
These are
super
suicide
flag.
dreads in the year of our Lord 2023.
I mean, what's a rev? 250, 300? Like I don't really
180?
keep up with faction supers, but
Holy shit! My man disappeared.
Redline learning that if you're not tank fit, you just vanish in a shield super.
the rev was by the person flying the rev. They admitted that they were in their crab fit, and they meant to refit to full tank, and they were not full tank fit. So the rev, the Revenant like melted. The Vendetta took a little bit longer.
Homie
we
just
only
disappeared.
We had only 7 supers on grid, I think, and like we had a couple carriers, but those don't do shit to like dreads. You know what I mean?
Redline actually just discovering that if you're not tank fit, you die very quickly.
No, I'm just
It's not
discovering.
really surprised anyone.
No. That's not what I'm discovering. Let me tell you what I'm discovering. So if it were me, if I had a faction super shit, if I have a faction anything, it's never going to be anything but tank fit.
It shouldn't be anything but tank fit anyways.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm learning is that people do things other than full tank their faction caps, which is
the link
silly.
I just dropped in chat is just the raw unedited, like with the UI on. And yeah, the rev melted. Props to the Vendetta, like the comms in that video. The Vendetta was like, hey guys, they're targeting the Vendetta. Can I get a little more reps, please? Super calm for losing like a faction super. You know what I mean? They're like,
Yeah.
the Vendetta's going down. If you have any more reps, it would be nice if you can, put some more reps on it. That'd be cool.
Well, it was who it was that lost that one. She's always been that kind of person.
Yasmin, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's only so much you can do, right? Like.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's not much more to say other than like it was a properly executed dread bomb. I mean, we flash formed Titans and had them on grid in less than 2 minutes, but with 24 dreads against 4 faxes, like 2 minutes is a long time, right?
Yeah.
How much did the Hicks on Undock mess you up?
Decently, especially for like response faxes, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were cleared within 30 seconds, but like again,
it was definitely not 30 seconds, but
when you have 24 dreads on grid.
Yeah, I think the Hick piece at least ensured the hell kill, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Chances are you might have got it otherwise, or still, but like, I think it guaranteed that.
Yeah, the Vendetta had a little more tank than the Rev did. The Rev was like.
Yeah, the Rev was 100% dead the second the dreads jumped in. Like, there's just with that fit, like he was never going to last more than a few seconds, right? So
it's probably still dead if you're full tank fit because you just get capped out, and it is a cap Redmond moment.
Well, I mean, you can properly utilize your cap booster and a shield super to maintain your.
It was spicy, especially because it was kind of a quiet night in Pancrab. You know what I mean? Like they definitely knew that numbers were like a little bit light or whatever. I mean, again, it's Horde. It's not super difficult to know what Horde is doing.
Well, no, it's not. I imagine. But either way, I mean, props to the drop. Good job.
It was unexpected. Yeah. I mean, Deepwater fucking in their video used a quote from my Corp comments that was like, "Holy shit, I was not ready for that." And one of the Nixes in my Corp, he came back from like a 6-month army deployment. And that was his first drop back. And I'm like, dude, you might lose your Nix here if this goes south. You know, it was a small drop initially, you know?
Yeah.
A relatively small drop. And I'll say one of the things that really benefited them was that we were dropping on bombers, so all the carriers and supers had like light fighters loaded, and you know, recalling, refueling, reloading takes, you know, 20-30 seconds. And when you have 24 dreads on grid, like that time matters, because 7 supers should be able to kill a couple dreads, you know, fairly quickly. But reloading those anti-cap fighters is like precious seconds of, you know, 100,000, 200,000 DPS, right?
Yeah, it was pretty fast. Plus, if you're crab fit, I mean, those things were DOA, and that's perfectly fine. Someone was saying in the chat, imagine caring about losing a faction super. Honestly, I wish I was as rich as you. If you don't care about losing faction supers, I do. I would. It would.
I don't know
suck.
the Revenant pilot. I know Yasmin is fine.
The Rev was DK.
Yeah.
So probably also fine.
Generally, if you can afford a faction super, you can afford to lose a faction super.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not always true, but generally true.
Yeah, and wasn't it like, is what the thing about it as well is like everyone got SRP'd, I think, pretty quickly, and Pancrab went green like an hour and a half later.
Yo,
And
solid.
things went back to business as usual, like very shortly afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, well, you're not gonna have like a moment of where you're like, okay, guys, we have to collect our thoughts. We just had a dread bomb in our space. The world just carries on. You just gotta
Let's
keep
have a
moving
Sino
on.
vigil for the 2 dead supers for the next 12 hours.
And I am steadily closing tabs.
And I mean, for the Panvamp folks, I mean, it's that much less likely you're gonna get dread bombed anytime soon, too, right?
Right.
I'll tell you, it's the first
so
time I've
difficult to
seen
see
Corp.
dreads.
First time I've seen Corp Titans log on in 6 months.
Whoever's in chat, yeah, they were bashing Pocos.
Generally speaking, it's been a while since we've seen a good dread bomb in drone space, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean,
they're clearing Pocos, whoever's asking in chat.
Aside from the faction super
What are you talking about,
losses, like the attitude was pretty fun.
The supers that jumped in were Poco bashing.
Before this, you mean?
Oh, they jumped off of a Poco bash as a response.
Okay.
That would make sense.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. But I mean, it was just light to begin with, and I mean, the problem came down to like faxes, right? It was for the amount of supers and carriers on grid, the fax drop was very, very light.
Yeah, you have to have faxes. If you don't, you pay the price.
Well, back in my day, if you have a super and you're dropping it, you have a fax with it automatically, but that's not the way the world works these days.
If you want a super, you should be required to own a fax alt and have a fax. But...
Yeah, back in my day, to even get in a super group, you have to have a fax alt.
As far as I know, I think it's still a requirement across most alliances, but the fact that we didn't have 1-to-1 was
well, it's always one of the things where people get lax, right?
Right. Yeah. If we had as many faxes as we did caps on grid, it might have. It probably may have still been the Revenant dead because of the fit, but like may not have been.
Yeah, regardless of what happens, I think the Revenant dies just because if you're not really super careful about the way you activate your mods, you're gonna get muted out.
Yeah.
No hard.
Vendetta might have
basically
lived.
Insta die. Yeah.
But like
Vendetta
props to them though. It was a proper dread bomb. You know what I mean? Like I said at the start, they don't work if you expect them, right?
Well, so my thing, and this is something that I heard people say on this show, is that the Suicide Dread Bomb was dead when they did the cap price increases, like a while back.
Then gotta be for faction supers.
You can still dread bomb Titans. You can still dread bomb super carriers. You just the investment differential is different, right? So you can't just do.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like that's
yeah.
What
So
I
the
mean,
way you do it is different, for sure.
So how do you do it differently?
It's literally
this is the same amount of dreads that
red line,
a Suicide
red line,
Squad would have used. What?
Red line.
Well,
It's because you're shooting faction supers. If you
I think you just got to be more discerning.
if you jump
right,
in
with your
25
targets.
dreads and kill 2 regular supers, it's nowhere near fucking worth for the dreads.
And
Yeah,
and
you
to
can maybe
correct
do 20
myself,
dreads for a Titan, but like not for a super
to
carrier.
correct myself, I'm looking at the video and it took us about 3 minutes to get Titans on grid, not 2 minutes. So again, with that amount of DPS, seconds matter.
Sir, please don't tout the response time of Pancrab as we're discussing the loss of a Vendetta and a Revenant in your space.
I mean, it's a public video. It's a public video.
It is a public video, but also they're gone now. Anyways.
All those dreads are dead.
Those dreads are dead, except for the 2 that got away. You didn't get them.
That's true.
A spy's gonna spy. They'll know anyway.
Or some poor dreads somewhere is gonna die to 2 dreads that will also die.
Brendan keeps gifting subs.
It was fun though. I mean, it was not too often these days you see a proper like dread bomb executed. I think the last one was when fire was moving, and that was like fish in a barrel, right?
Yeah, for sure.
That one was pure luck, literally, because of timing on the move ops.
There was a lot of setup for that. There was not luck. There was a
Yeah,
lot of setup.
It's not luck, but like once the dreads were on grid, it was fish in a barrel. Like there was no.
Speak of the KFR Dread Bomb, I would like to thank Constantine for being the deep sleeper agent we always knew he was. He PDS'd all the bubbles off so the dreads could get out.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Well, apparently I've got to invite people to Discord. So I do have a collection of battle reports that I found, and I want to kind of go through them and see if any of you guys were there. If you have anything you guys want to talk about, I like this kind of segment because I really only want to talk about it if people were there,
Then talk about it. Don't mansplain it.
Well, I was waiting for Sec to join because before I move on to the next topic, I wanted to see if Sec had anything you wanted to add to the conversation so far.
I don't know what we talked about so far. I just got home from work.
Fantastic. Well, we just finished talking about how Zoe subscribed for 5 months in a row. Thanks, Zoe. And then we did talk about the Dread Bomb, where the Vendetta and the Revenant died. You know anything about that?
That was yeah, I saw. That was nicely done.
So you
Yeah, it was
are
a properly executed dread bomb.
Proud of them, like me.
Yes. I was I messaged to Moxa right after I saw it, and I told him that was a good job. That was well pogged.
Nice.
I feel bad for the people who lost the faction supers, of course, but I think they'll be okay.
Yeah, no,
it's
I'm
a small
sure.
game, right? You gotta respect the enemy when they catch you
like,
off guard, right?
Well, and I know how much work goes into those kind of things, having
It is not minor.
Yes, having done it before, and nobody and for every time you get one, there's 9 times where it doesn't work out and you have to cancel, and nobody even knows that you were formed. And so there's a lot more work that goes into it than just what is obvious. So I feel for Tamaxa. He probably went through a lot of trouble before he got to pull the trigger, and it worked out in a big way. So it's a really nice feeling when that happens. But nobody, everyone just sees the final result and they don't realize how much setup it is. I'm sure that was a lot of work.
And then prior to that, we talked about Pochven. Any input on Pochven?
I literally learned, did they just sleeper it in and just say, oh, by the way, now Pochven is back? There was really no advance warning, right?
Right on the money,
exactly what
right on the money.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with all these multi-boxers that have sort of, entrenched themselves into the cracks between the tiles in Pochven mold. It'll be interesting to see how long they hold on against everyone trying to come back. Probably they'll do quite well, I imagine, as everyone kind of relearns how Pochven works.
Yeah, that was kind of the consensus here, is that they've built a considerable foothold, and it's going to be a little tricky to get them out of their ground.
maybe
Yeah.
Contan and I can like, it's like that meme with like the two like dudes with like really big arms, like, you know, we can like fucking
Shaking hands in the middle.
Handshake your way
I
through it.
love it.
Fuck multi-boxers in the middle.
yeah, we can like yeah, exactly.
That'd be pretty funny to see.
I don't know, man. I think I mean I've been saying it for a while now. Before this was that this would be like the worst possible way to change it, to just go back to how it was after 5 months of uncontested bullshit, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think they. I think
And why do you think that, Contan? I'm just curious. I'm not
'Cause
disagreeing
we're-
with you.
we're not talking a small amount of money they've made. We're talking like double-digit trillions over 10 people for 5 months now, right? Like the amount of resources they're gonna have and the amount of like work it's gonna take to be able to get much of anything done is gonna be pretty extreme. They really needed to do something about the sites themselves. They're just like way too easy. Drone comms can just kite the sites way too easily. Like, I think it was just lazy of CCP to keep pulling the same lever 4 times in a row, right?
Yeah. I think probably like if they end up getting pushed out or not, it won't have to do with ISK, right? Because like even if it was like half as much or a third as much ISK, they would still be obscenely wealthy. So like they can afford to basically infinitely replace their losses. So I think it'll, if anything, it'll just be because like, you know, someone manages to make it so they just can't do it effectively. I don't think it'll be because they like lose too much ISK doing it.
Well, I
Right,
mean,
it's
they've
gonna-
injected into literally anything they could run now, so it's just a bit awkward, right? It definitely wasn't the case before.
The thing that's I think hard about fighting them is like not so much the actual doctrines, it's like when you combine like booshers and like triggers and stuff like that, it's like quite challenging to be able to project and like actually get kills, because if they start dying, they just kind of like boosh off, and then like the booshers usually can survive. Like that part is actually quite difficult. It's actually hard to pin them down once they're already set up inside. I remember that was quite frustrating.
I mean, 10 people with. I mean, they could pull. I mean, how many characters are in that alliance? 180 or something last I checked?
Yeah.
There's 10 actual people in the alliance, so like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot more active players at the keys, at the helm, to take them on in a fight and consistently push them off. People who actually, know what they're doing, can be relied on to do what they're supposed to do.
So the
That can
member
be a
count has
challenge.
gone up. So it's a skill issue. The alliance is 222 members. Active PvP last 7 days is 120 characters. So
That's
like,
fantastic.
yeah, and that's like 10, literally 9 or 10 actual people in that setup there. Last I counted.
Well, good for them, honestly. I'm glad they've got something there, you know.
No, I mean Dora himself. I don't remember where he said it, but he said,
had a
"I don't
hype
think
train?
CCP." He said, "I don't think CCP could have catered to us harder if they tried to," which is pretty true.
Yeah, because they
Yeah.
could manage the timers themselves, and if you're just randomly yeeting in, the chance you're gonna never have a site up to find is massive. And if they know it, they know exactly when to go looking for it, and it makes
So
it just
aren't you
that much
advocating for them
easier.
going back to the system they just went to then?
I think Contan is saying the sites should be more challenging, so it's hard to like single, like
Yeah,
have
so
one
I think
person
CCP is
solo
taking
them.
the correct first step though. So
Oh,
if you want to
maybe.
rebuild Pochven after like dropping like multiple nuclear bombs on it, I think step one is to go back to the instant respawn, and then step two is to go to like maybe a couple minute delay, and then step three is probably go to like a couple minute delay plus like some modification to the site to make them more difficult in specific ways.
If
that make
that's the
it harder.
plan, then that would be great. But like,
I'm not in the CSM anymore, but I know that's how I would do it.
all
Again,
that I've
so-
seen, all that we've seen is like so first they nerfed it, and then they unnerfed it a little bit, and then now they've.
Well,
you
I
know,
think they realized that like
They
I think
killed
they
it.
realized that they had officially nuked it, and the only way to get people back in Pochven is to basically undo what they did and like try to be like, okay, we get it, we fucked up. Not that they're ever going to admit that, but
You know what would help Contan in the balancing is making it so some of the other sites could be like we're not total
Yes.
ass. Like
Yes.
Not just obs. Yeah, no.
I
Yeah.
strongly agree.
Strong agree.
Strongly agree.
like
Yes.
obviously
More
they can't
diversity
all
in
be
the-
like
Are you
they can't
saying-
all be like obs tier. In fact, probably they should bring obs down and then bring the other
Yes.
ones up to that
Mhm.
level.
I
So
agree.
there's like
Are
some
you
variety.
saying buff world arcs?
I'm not necessarily only world arcs. Like there's a lot of other sites. I honestly,
Mhm.
it's been so long since I've been there. There's
Just
like
World
a lot of
Arcs-
them.
No, Sec isn't wrong. They're totally ignored. If it's not an obs, like, it doesn't matter,
Yeah.
basically.
Oh yeah, trust me. I
Yeah,
agree.
we've been agreeing on that point for years now and asking for that for years now. Agreed. Hard
World
agreed.
Arcs have a lot. World Arcs have a lot of like inherent restrictions that make them more awkward to run and actually PvP in.
Yeah, because a
than
lot of the
observatories.
rewards are like things that are very low volume, like sellers and stuff, right? It's like kind of like you can't like mass run them and then like
It's not
turn
even
it
just
into
that.
ISK.
It's also that the aggro in the sites is messed up. So if you're first on grid, the trigs are going to target you. So you bring in the second fleet, and then you're having to fight the rats, which are very strong in World Arcs, and the other people, right?
You know, it's also hard to balance around drone comps because if you make them shoot drones, then it's like drones are unusable. But if they don't shoot drones, then drone comps are like too good. So it's like it's very hard to find a middle ground with that kind of thing. I don't know, you know.
So we were like, I mean, obviously, I
you're
was
dead
running
right.
the Goon Sig for like however many, like a year, right? We were looking at other hacks, right? That weren't just drone comp setups. And then CCP went through and they literally just took a baseball bat to every hack that we could have used except for the Ishtar, right? So it was kind of awkward.
I thought
you know?
Vagas were like okay, if I remember right, but
Vagas are okay against Ishtars. I don't know how well they're gonna do against like Eoses or like Fargers or like
yeah.
anything like that, right? I don't know. We'll have to see. I know that some of the Vagas got kills against Fargers in the past, but that was actually with the help of Dora they were doing that. So
It'd be kind of interesting too if they made obs like more of a mid-tier site where like battleship hulls couldn't go inside and then like the world arcs got kind of rebuffed to be like the big money and like but there's not as many and like they're way rare or something like where the meta is more like cruiser and battle cruiser centric or something like because once you start getting marauders and nesters it just like basically like you know as long as you can get to them in time obviously like if you can run them before the fleet even gets there that's different but it like fucks up the balance like very heavily in favor of like Apex if you can get all that stuff inside. But it'd be kind of
I agree,
interesting.
but that also allows you to punch up like we had done to Horde in the past. So I'm not
Or
like
down though. That's the problem, right?
yeah, no, I agree too. I agree with that. But
Every
like
alliance has
part of
won
that,
and lost a lot of the Apex fights. Like that's the glory of it, right? Like when you're limited on numbers, you get a lot of dynamic fleet sizes. You know what I mean?
Well, and the other thing is that the Ishtar fleets have a lot more mobility available to them that the battleship fleets can't do so well. Like the wormholes, the filaments, it's a lot easier to use those shortcuts with an Ishtar versus an Apex fleet. They really can't. They just have to slow boat around the triangle. So you let them have the site, you go somewhere else, was the answer more often than not.
somebody mentioned Serbs in the chat, and that was Serbs were actually okay against Ishtars until they completely deleted their ability to project.
Yeah.
Like it's like okay, well, Serbs went from being like, yeah, okay, you could actually use these like HML Serbs into Ishtars, like you got the missile range, and then it's like, oh yeah, you literally cannot do anything. They can shoot you from 3 times as far away as you can shoot them at that point. So it's just fucked.
So if you were advising CCP on how to fix the sites, what singular change or small number of micro changes would you suggest to fix Pochven?
I think I
Sometimes
honestly
there
think
is no
drone
easy answer,
comps.
but
I honestly think drone comps just kind of have to go for now. Like maybe they can
so
adjust it later, but
adjust the ratting aggro so that they target drones.
That's a big
yeah,
suggestion I've seen a lot. Yeah.
I
It is
don't
a
like
very
if
it's
we're
very
talking
elegant because it
easy.
doesn't fuck everything else over, so it is kind of elegant in that way.
If we're talking easy and like quick change they could make that would have the most impact, I still think like a more comprehensive, setup would be better. But like if they just want to make quick changes, I think they just have to add drone aggro or something. Right?
Having done enough stints with CCP as a CSM now, the reality is, unless the comprehensive update of Pochven is in the cards, you can have minor fixes in a month or two, or you can have a comprehensive update in 5 or 6 years.
That's kind of the vibe I've gotten and like the rumors and all that.
Database changes versus like feature updates, basically.
Well, one thing requires significant dev time, which is a scarce resource, or one thing requires a dev to spend an afternoon adjusting some code, right? Like,
Yes, I agree. And if they're gonna make one change, I think it should be drone aggro because there aren't many like I don't know. I don't think it would hurt anything really, other than like again the people that are like barely playing the game anyways. Like even in Horde, you see a lot of people that really don't like flying Ishtars, even though they're the best ISK, just because they're kind of boring. You don't do much yourself. Whereas Pochven, a
Yeah.
lot of it is about controlling your ship, right? Whereas the drone comps, there isn't much of that. So I don't think there'd be much loss if we just killed the whole thing. with regular
People loved in the
Jaraxxus.
Horde Sig flying the doctrines that were not optimal because they weren't Ishtars, even if they weren't as good. Like people flew Vedmax forever, even though they like sucked just because they weren't Ishtars. People flew Drex for a while. Like people wanted to try. Like we had like new doctrines every like 2 weeks because people just desperately wanted something else.
Yeah, and with Gobbins basically saying we're only going to do Ishtars and Vagas, right? Like, I mean, sure, I don't really blame him for that, honestly. Like, at this point, you just kind of do what you got to do, right?
Yeah, risk avoidance is very much cancer to fun in the game in a lot of ways. Though it's very natural to seek risk avoidance, it ends up burning your group in the long term.
It's also just whack that you can like burn 200 out while still applying damage like that. It's
Yeah.
just so silly.
Well,
not
you
wrong.
know, I think also Marauders did have like a sort of out like the Marauder balance, like in like as we've seen in the recent fleet fights in the north, like at large scale, they're not really like overpowered really
Right.
for their cost, but at small scale, it's like, you know, running into like a Vargur when you're a small gang of 6 people versus when you're like, you know, at a huge scale. It's the balance is definitely like skewed in favor, like the smaller you are, the more like disgusting Marauders damage, tank, and application and range are. So like
Mhm.
that is one reason why it's skewed. Like I think, for example, like just if you took Marauders out of pot, which I'm not saying that you necessarily should or that there'd be a mechanic, but like if it was even if it was like like faction battleships and Lashaks and all, like suddenly it's way different if there's not like paladins and, you know, stuff like that involved. It's more interesting, I guess. But
I see a mirror between Pochven and Wormhole Space in that regard, that you've got limited dudes in fleet that you can bring. And with the site limit, it kind of artificially, reduces it more. But like both groups tend to be using Marauders now instead of using the variety they'd used in the past. The same support ships are the same. Like so much of it is a mirror of what you can afford that gives you the edge in the small groups. But then for people who don't have access to that kind of ISK yet, or can't quite compete at that level yet, it can be a really hard barrier to overcome.
I mean, the main upshot of Paladins, like in the meta at the time, was well, one, they beat basically every other ship that wasn't a drone boat easily, right? And then eventually we started using just Paladin spam, kind of like Horde, and just started using beams, and that actually worked pretty okay as well. I think
yeah,
Paladins,
the
like
problem
in
with Paladin.
general, are just like a separate issue, but they are also kind of problematic in my opinion.
Well, and part of that is just because like it kind of makes any shield comps pretty obsolete because usually the advantage of a shield comp is that you have more DPS, but when you can have a paladin that has like all the tank, the armor mid slots, the versatility, plus it can do like 2000 DPS with a pulse setup or 1600 with a beam setup, suddenly like the nightmare that does 1000 DPS, which is normally pretty good, is suddenly not as impressive anymore, or the Bargus that can do like 1300 peak DPS is suddenly not as
I
impressive.
think I
And
have
so
a battle report about nightmares on it though. They didn't do terribly.
well, but that's separate. That's different because it's a nullsec. Whereas like these sites, because of the way that they operate, where there's a lot of warping to zero and you're at close range, like
Nightmares are awful in Pochven. They're so
yeah, the
bad.
lack of mobility doesn't matter as much in
Mhm.
Pochven once you're actually in the site. So if you can just project especially as far as you can, and
Yeah.
with the
Argus are
lower
actually
number,
very good in Pochven, but Nightmares are just awful.
they are, but not against paladins. Like the
No,
paladins
yeah,
will
for
still
sure.
eat your
Right.
lunch.
And the
That's what I'm
mechanic to
saying, content.
remember
It's like
is
Argus would be
sorry.
good. They would be good, a lot
Yeah.
better if there
Yeah.
were not paladins, but because there are.
Part of the problem is also just the Nestor reps with the Pochven
Yeah.
wide bonus.
There needs to be
The
shield nesters
remote
as well.
repair bonus. Like Nestor rep is like absolutely bonkers. Like you
Yeah.
can tank so much with like 2 or 3 Nestors. It's actually crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and remembering too that the sites are dead space, so all the tricks you'd use in a nullsec fight to get on top of the opponent, so many of them no longer apply. It's either boosh or good luck. If they're already in the
Actually,
site.
I love that. I love the
Yeah.
Boucher warfare stuff personally. Like I
Well,
find
the
it really
Boucher
interesting.
warfare is fine, but like you can't really position with like warping in it. You know what I mean? Like that.
Mhm.
It's fun, is what
not-
it is.
Yeah, Bouchers are fun. Like
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I have like 6 characters that can fly command destroyers now, and like I mean, that's kind of the arms race of Pochven is like the, getting better at the game as well, like getting better at bushing, getting better at like positioning, getting better at.
It's more skill-based gameplay.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
yeah.
But
on
that's
like a
not so much
smaller
because of
scale.
the dead space necessarily. That's more because of like it's small numbers of on each
Yes.
side, and like you're
Yeah.
at close range. Like you could
Alright.
have an open site that you could warp
Guys,
into. Still,
listen.
they would be.
I'm sorry. I hate that I'm doing this, but we talked about Pochven for a long time already. At the beginning of the show.
Nobody was in this fight though. Nobody was in this fight.
Nobody was in
You're
this
still-
fight? Okay, I have like 6 more.
Okay.
And then there's a big one that I don't think anybody was in, but I want to hear what everyone thinks about it.
It's
All right.
21 people from PH here, so I don't know.
Yeah, okay. So nothing. What about this one? In branch, even less pH.
Yeah, no PH.
All right.
And I wasn't here for any of these, so.
Yeah, I haven't been on any recent.
Looks to me like there were plenty of people in these fights. They're just not here.
Right.
Yeah, true. Well, that's the thing. Is like these are things that I've seen come through over the week. And
Start
if,
looking
if,
at PRs instead of clicking through in Redline.
One PH. Who was the one PH member on this one?
Think
Oh, this wasn't catch. Like I don't even know. I don't even. I'll be honest. I don't even know what's happening in the South right now.
This is
No
the
PH?
Yeah. So this is okay. So this is what is this one? This is them killing a Sinojammer. This is an X47 and JTech C. No one was here. No one cares about this, right?
Show the monitors, man.
Split.
That's what we got.
There are people here. What the Jesus
Yeah, wait,
Christ.
hold on.
Split off PH and PL. Just to the side for real quick.
All right.
Like he wants to see who was there.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
small
we
gang.
were nano gang.
Oh, it's like small gang.
It's the
Yeah, we were
homies.
nano ganging this entire time. We were like, I'm
Lots-
there. We were nano ganging. We were
There's
there.
You're there in a
Johnny's
red tree.
here.
It doesn't count.
You're there in a red tree? Yeah, there you are in a red tree.
That was nanoing.
Hey,
I
better
got
than
a
the
27
crow.
kills.
Timer, I wasn't there.
This was what?
This was whatever fucking iHub fight that happened was.
Okay. Did they ever get that iHub in
No.
X47?
No,
And they haven't undeployed, have they?
not yet.
Okay.
They
Alright.
haven't tried for the iHub though since this attempt at least.
Alright, so next up is Branch. This is very CNTZ.
Look at the monster. Look at the monitors, man. Holy shit. It's doomed.
Constant.
This is the
Just
are-
five.
Five from just B3. Holy shit.
It's doomed.
But they won, though. They won.
Did they?
I mean, Frat did a.
Yes.
They killed the ANSI.
Yeah. And
Frat-
they
Frat
killed
did a
the
little bit of
Phoenix
Paladins.
Navy. Yeah, look at that. Paladin fleet.
I will say, like, some of the CNTZ frat are just like very aggressive. Like, there's fights that I just wouldn't take. That they're like, oh fuck it. They'll just.
They've always
like,
done
you
that, man.
Yeah,
They've always
that's-
done that.
Okay, here's the monitors for them. And that is like VVV was the same way when we were fighting GOTG or Dead Coalition, whatever they were, before they died. We would basically tell VVV like, hey, you guys are in the battleship, so we're gonna have you jump in and take the damage at first, and then we're gonna jump in after. And they were like, okay, we go. And then they just went. It was fantastic. I don't
Yeah,
think
CNTZ is like hyper aggressive, and that's actually just a good thing, I think, in my opinion. Like you're gonna feed because of it,
Well, it
but
makes it
it's a lot
entertaining.
healthier.
also
for
this
Nostalgia.
is not a minor fight. This is almost 1,000 people fighting. The fuck you mean minor fight?
I will always
Oh,
be in favor
monitor.
Of people, I will always be in favor of people taking a fight versus not taking the fight. Right?
Mhm.
Can you split goons off? I want to see what they were in.
You don't want to know what they were in.
It was Kane. It was Kane's, wasn't it? I'm guessing.
What the hell is
Bombers?
this?
Hold on,
Kikis?
let me see. Oh,
What
fuck!
the
I
hell
was
is
wrong.
this?
This is Kikis and Bombers. This
Oh,
is
amazing.
That's to fight Marauders.
I was
just
wondering
cheese
why I
on it.
didn't
It
see
was-
any monitors.
it was
a
to
Kiki
gank the
fleet.
caps.
Of course
Yeah,
it
okay.
was.
Makes sense. Pretty based,
It's a
actually.
low risk situation.
This was a cap gank? On this
Looks like I got a
Phoenix,
bunch
I'm
of
assuming.
kills.
Yeah,
Oh, scroll the fuck up, Redline.
got a Phoenix. I am. It's a little delayed. Relax. I got a Phoenix
Goons-
Navy and an
so-
Apostle.
Goons were not there. Frat's like, ha, PNIs, and Goons are like, Kiki's, let's go.
What is that Talos doing there?
He's gaming.
I want to know what they're doing.
He's
That's-
gaming.
Are all those Phoenix Navies like rapid torp? I'm
Yeah, they're
guessing
all
they are.
Haas.
Oh my god, dude. I guess
Based.
like it hasn't trickled down that Ha dreads are not super good, but
Oh, you have like 10 of them. They do work, but
I mean,
What
sure,
are they
but
shooting? Mutants?
yeah,
like
things they
they're
shouldn't
not.
be shooting.
Yeah.
Things that they used to be able to do effectively.
Shooting mutants?
Well, it's always funny when we're like playing and like there's some FC who's like hasn't played for like the last few years and they're like, when are we gonna drop the hot dreads? And I'm like, no, dude, we're not. It's not like that anymore.
Well, as we've seen, Sec, we've had more luck in dropping anti-cap treads on battleship
Yeah.
fleets.
That-
And
that
drops
seems-
of Indies. Yeah,
That
for
works
sure.
a lot better.
It's because you move the thing off you have to click update BR, then you can click the button Redline.
It's alright. I'm just gonna ignore
just
it
click-
and go to the
You can always
next
just
one.
click summary. Okay.
That's okay. Alright, so this one is from the Southlands. This one is a minor fight.
Shit, BR.
I don't know why I have it here.
The Russia.
Yeah, and then this one is Branch and Declan. Still no Horde here. I thought you guys were deployed to this region of space.
Yeah, but
We're
like,
not deployed to the branch, you monkey.
What?
and also like deep in Chinese time zone, like there usually has to be something pretty major to like get me out of bed at 3 in the morning. Probably like most of goons, I would imagine.
Are you the only person doing fleets for your alliance then?
I mean, I don't have a lot of Chinese people in my SIG, no, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, the time zone's hard for everybody to make except for the, Chinese players in Frat.
Hey, goons are putting up okay numbers when good FC pings.
Well, I think you guys do have some
Are
Chinese
they?
FCs though, right?
Yes.
Alice and stuff like that. But I mean, there's a reason why in this time zone you see goons and bombers and kikis and canes and not in like Tempests and
Paladins and
Lasheks.
TFIs.
Right.
Yes. True.
So
Yeah,
what do the
sometimes-
FC programs for these groups look like then? If there's no new FCs coming up during those time zones.
I mean, every group has FCs during those time zones, but they're not necessarily deployed and they're not necessarily like the best of the best, probably. I mean, goons are pretty like they have some long standing and Horde used to, but we had one guy in AUTZ who was pretty good for a long time, but he eventually like he quit the game several years ago. And like every group has FCs in every time zone, I think. It's just the amount of people and the quality and the experience will vary pretty greatly. So obviously Frat has pretty good FCs during that time zone, and probably X Death has some of their better ones too. And then Goons have some like ones that, if nothing else, have experience and stuff like that. But it's all like about what time zone you're designed to fight in. So in your main time zone, you'll have pretty good stuff, and in off time zones, it's more hit or
No,
miss.
I get all that. But is there no like doctrines that scale down for the FCs, or they're not FCs during the time zones that are willing to deploy? Like,
Well, I mean, Horde itself is not deployed up north. It's only my SIG, and my SIG is very small. So like, we can maybe get 40 or 50 people in our top time zone. So in Chinese time zone, without a pre-ping or anything, it would be like 10 people, and it's just like it's hard to do a lot with 10 people in a deeply, insomnia time zone. So
gotcha.
that's why Horde doesn't show up to a lot of these.
FC training setups, but like in a war like this, if you aren't already kind of established, it's going to be hard to start doing the heavy strat up stuff like in the middle of it.
Yeah, it's like deciding you want to learn, I don't know, like competitive swimming and then trying to join the Olympics immediately. Like it just doesn't, it's not a recipe for success.
And then especially for goons, there isn't a lot that went on in this time zone before this war. So it's kind of
Well, pretty much everyone except for Frat. Like, I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
well, we also did not have a lot going on in that time zone either, I think.
All right, so next battle report on the dock. Oh, this is the Illimer fight. Are any of you guys there for that?
Gillimer. Which
Oh
one
yeah,
is
this was
this?
Volta
This is the big
feeding.
Losec one.
Yeah,
Oh,
this
this
was
was
the
Volta. This was a
other
Blue
feeding
Pro.
train
Losec
wreck.
one.
Wait, so Firefox, are Volta like blue with Deepwater, or do they just kind of like team up
They
from
live in
Turner?
Turner.
But do they are they like blue with each other, or
Blue Troll? I guess
They
is the
should
best way to
be,
put
yeah.
it. It's not like
like do they ever shoot
it's
each
Blue
other?
Troll.
Like,
Is and anything strategic and important? No.
hmm.
If like XYZ is
That's kind of
roaming
interesting
in
because
faction
when we
warfare
moved up
space,
north,
sure.
they had so many negative things to say about Big AB, like Volta and all those people. They were like so negative about them. Like now they're like friends. Kind of interesting.
The Turner groups are a bit different than mainline, I imagine.
Well, Turner Volta is essentially the entire alliance at this point.
Gotcha.
Yeah, they don't really show up that much in the north anymore.
That's
Volta
true.
forms bigger the feed in like Molden Heath and like Metro than they do the like defend their
Well,
space.
I mean, their numbers are better. Like it's clear their membership enjoys this a lot more. Like Volta have actually, I've seen some decent numbers from them in LowSec recently, whereas like in the north, I mean, they never had
I mean,
really
it's
that
kind of
great numbers.
Volta's always been though. They were never a blob nullsec alliance. And never
To be
wanted
fair,
to be it. So this is definitely a lot. It's a lot healthier for their alliance to be in Turner than it is to be in the north.
to be fair, I wanna play devil's advocate a little bit. Volta was like actually doing stuff in the war for like months and months before Goons or anybody else showed up, right? Like I remember NoPro was actually like running fleets to fight Frat, and they were actually doing stuff in like FTech-N, and like this war's been going on a long time. So it's perfectly possible that like people come to back them up and carry the whole situation. Maybe they just say, okay, well, let's deploy for content, right?
Or they're probably just tired of fighting the same war the whole time.
Because like I don't think I'd seen NoPro come in for one of these fights. I don't know.
I think I've seen.
I don't know. The last time we saw Volta in like
It
Pureblind,
was when they did the carriers, I think.
Well, no, when they were trying to Von Hole me, right? Like.
Oh, well, that too, but that was. Yeah. No, I mean, I think Volta had a little bit of an identity crisis when we came up north. Unfortunately, like I've thought about this and it's sort of marinated over the last few months. But Volta is like used to being the one that is like the predator and like sort of like pounces on unsuspecting victims. And when it started happening to them with their like B3 fleets and stuff like that, I think it really affected them, and it was a very strange and uncomfortable position for them to be the nullsec block that like other people are taking advantage of. And I don't think it was a very comfortable position for many of their members to sort. There was some cognitive dissonance there about how it's possible that they're like the ones trying to protect the crabs getting tackled and like, getting jumped on their ansiblexes and stuff like that. And so I think that was pretty difficult for them. And a lot of the conversations I had with members of their leadership sort of heavily hinted at that fact without them outright saying it. And I think now that they're in low sec and it's kind of they're back to what they normally do, which is not like protecting crabs and getting jumped with no intel and stuff. Now they're the ones doing it again, which is probably good for them.
That makes a lot of sense.
Can somebody find this man a super Titan FC?
You mean Alterari?
Yeah.
I need a Titan.
He's still
FC.
looking, man.
I need a super.
How
Titan
dare
FC.
I know my limitations and ask for help? How fucking dare I?
How fucking dare you?
All
All right.
Are we referring to the thing in drone?
Yes.
Yes.
I thought he did really well, didn't he? I thought.
Yeah, but he still
that
asked
turned
for an
out-
FC.
I can't
mean-
form main supers and titans and FC on grid. Like that's just not
Yeah.
possible. You guys are asking for a lot here.
I was quite pleased. Like I wasn't exactly pleased that the two faction supers died, but how things were handled after that was like uncharacteristically smooth. I think so. I
would agree with that.
Also, a lot of credit for that.
And when I ask for a Super and Titan FC and Mr. Trouser Snake just gently shows up to give me guidance rather than taking over, it couldn't have asked for a better support there.
I'm confused.
It went well.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's particularly
roughly
upset about it.
speaking.
Like they had a good drop. Like they did a lot of.
No,
prep.
yeah.
Like shit.
Dread bombs don't work if you expect them to happen.
Well, and I think that they executed everything perfectly, with the exception of not getting into their Falcons after their bombers died.
What was that? How was that going to work? What
They
were
were
the
supposed
Falcons
to get
supposed to
into.
do?
This is dank leaks, by the way. They were supposed to get into the Falcons that were sitting in their dreads and jam fighters.
Yeah, that's a little
coulda helped.
unrealistic.
Yeah, it's a
expectation.
that would require a lot of execution.
Yeah, that would require a level of execution that is
All I'm saying is the last
insanity.
time Ferrari had
Let's
to
call
like
it.
do everything on his own. BFL was pinging. No sleep for Alterari.
Factual.
I mean, it was no sleep for me too, to be fair. So
Yeah, no, it was a shared suffering.
It could have been a lot worse if the response was not what it was.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of what, like, I've watched the video, and with our comms on it, I'd say
My video,
200 times by now.
it could have been
And
a Caps or Edmund situation, is what you're saying.
yeah, exactly. And
Tango's
I
are here.
think
Tango's are here.
Tango's are here. I fucked up on the target calling a little bit, but I mean, so did Big AB. They call
Yeah,
it
well,
Wyvern
any
Primal.
target is better than no target. When,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, when it comes to supers, the rule is all like for good super FCs is always just literally always be applying damage. Like that's the only rule that matters.
Yeah. I think that.
So is it
all in
true
all,
that a bunch of like blue alts go and hick bubble the undock at the same time?
Yes,
'Cause
they
that's
did.
pretty clever. That's pretty clever.
Well,
One on the
it
super
was.
undock, 3 on the.
Although they've been trying to
Yeah, it
meme
was
and
3
be like,
hicks.
No,
they've
it
been
was
trying
4.
to
One
meme
on
and
the,
be
it
like,
was,
they've been trying to
one
be
on-
meme and be like, oh, it was just blue guys that were messing up, but like, obviously.
No, that's
everything
actually a
was-
very that's like a smart, a smart thing to do, I think. I don't know, like how much time did it really buy them? I'm not sure because
3
theoretically you could
minutes.
About
just
another minute or so, I would say.
I mean
because
theoretically you would think everything on the undock could just like nuke them in like about like 30 seconds, but I don't know,
I
maybe
think
it was
everything
took a
on the
while.
undock nuked them in about a minute and a half. More the confusion factor. It
Well, okay, well
helped.
that's a pretty significant amount of time in a dread bomb, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, exactly right. And
Yeah, spy games are annoying and unfortunate, but quite predictable around events like that.
Well, it's also horde, so I mean
the consensus we reached earlier
Horde
is it
moment.
probably guaranteed them the hell kill. I don't know if it really changed the dynamic on anything else.
Yeah, those faction supers fit the way they were dead the second they undocked.
I still don't know about the Vendetta. I think the Vendetta might have hit a
We are
shot,
just
but-
repeating what we've already like said.
100%.
I just showed up.
Well,
Okay?
Ferrari's here
So
now.
I was
love
playing
it.
D&D.
I just said in the host chat like having the show twice.
All right,
Deja
also,
vu,
Ferrari, now,
okay.
what's your opinion on Pochven? We need to talk
Oh
about this.
no!
I'm gonna fly the most non-committal doctrine to farm salt from door.
Oh god.
Base.
Okay,
Okay,
farm sort
farm
from
salt
Dora.
is
You're
cool.
fine.
Move
Yeah,
on.
that's cool.
Moving
Yes,
on with the
yes,
show.
I feel like
yes,
that's a very
yes,
base
yes.
reply. I mean,
Get the fucking video off the screen. Go back to what you were trying to do.
All right,
Guys, you're a revenant died.
stop it. All right, next up is the big
I'm
low
on
sec
morphine.
fight. The big low sec fight that happened last night in U.S. time zone.
Oh my!
where Big AB did a little bit of feeding.
Spicy.
Everyone did a bit of feeding.
Dude,
No,
it was
everyone-
confusing.
Specifically
because
Big AB
No,
feeding.
actually
everybody
three
did a little bit of
sides. So is
No,
there actually
no,
three
this
sides?
is-
Because I looked at it.
Yes. Okay, so the sides were.
Because Big AB
G-
didn't
it
look like
was-
they were shooting in it and
Okay.
scary.
I have
The
4
sides that-
sides.
One group is just the random shitters that were there that don't apply to a side. The 3 sides were, as Big AB calls them, the swamp, which is like Trainwreck, Sedition, because we're all fucking blue, essentially. Then you have In it Renters, Low Sec Renters, TD Sin, then you have Big Ab.
But Big Ab didn't really. I looked at Big Ab's like kill board during the thing.
They were
and,
shooting
like,
both sides. They were in
I didn't see them really shooting in it or scary wormhole people much.
You-
Like
you
they were
shoot the
mostly just
people
shooting
who
train
feed-
wreck.
You shoot the people who feed their facts.
Well, but there was
first.
like a bunch of like Rev Navies and Zernich, like all this like stuff from like scary wormhole people, but it didn't seem like they were really shooting them. But I don't know, maybe they
So-
were.
When you're the third party, dread bomb in something like this, you shoot the group that has the more dreads, because if you shoot the group with less dreads, now you have a more equal dread fight to take. Whereas if you help the smaller group kill more dreads, you can
Yeah,
then
no,
just clap
I
the
got
smaller.
that Firefox, but did they jump out like the scary wormhole ones? Because they should have died after then, right? Like, but they didn't. Most of the dreads
No,
survived. Did they tether or jump out or something? Because like
Some more they started the bail, and then bums and co jumped in more dreads than were expected.
By the
I'm
way,
just trying to figure out
there's a
what
bunch of
Tamoxa
people in
did.
chat who think that it's very clever to point out that BFL said once upon a time that we are third partying. It is not as clever as you think, guys.
God, what's BFL?
I just am upset with Tim for not committing
Big
to kill
fucking
that last
losers.
3%.
Big
He should have
fucking
fed for the
losers.
3%.
No, man, it's the best friends legion.
What 3%?
The 3% on the Asbel.
Yeah, the Asbel got to 3%.
Like,
Wait, in
Tim should
Hull
have just
or
kept
Really
feeding.
that low?
Wait, 3%
Yeah.
whole?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah,
There's
Like,
no
what? Is
way.
it that close?
Yes.
it was
oh
that
my-
close,
stop
and
yelling, please.
Oh, wow.
they should have
Give
just
me
committed and
Who's
fed
yelling?
until it died.
a Wally. He's just yelling.
So much fun.
Oh. Wait, so and Tim called that off?
I don't know
Big
if it
Ab
was Tim,
wasn't
but I'm gonna
shooting the
blame Tim.
Asbel.
Okay, well
This is, as I said, it is the swamp, which is Trainwreck, Sedition, Bums, etc.
and
Versus in it
that's
plus
the
Sprinters.
far right
Again,
side
I'm still
here.
gonna blame Tamoxa because
Yeah,
he
so
didn't
who was
send me a
the
poppy picture.
last people on grid, Firefox?
Big Ab held grid, unironically.
So why didn't they finish? If they're really a third
It
party,
had
why didn't they
already
finish?
repaired,
Oh, it had already repaired. Okay.
and then they were still killing, and then TDson just warped off, and Big Ab got the loot.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't. I can't explain why TDson warped off. But
Sounds
just
like a deal was struck, if I'm being honest, and that's okay. That's fine. That's fine if a deal was struck. It just kind of ruins the whole thing.
just.
Did you guys know
there's
that
no
Securitas
you're
renamed
now
BFL to B Foreign Legion and he's joining Goon?
What?
Even if there was a deal, it'd be a 300 to 300 BR. Like, who cares?
I
There
know.
was no deal in place.
Yeah, I'm not saying there was, but even if there was,
You have Redline Coupon.
It was very bloody. It looks like.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
it
it
was
looks
Although
like a
the
hell of a
300,
fight.
300
is
brawl,
probably the
even then.
falsely inflated price of like faction dreads on there. It seems like the price is a little on the high side. for some
These
of that.
prices
Yeah, I'd
are all
agree with
wildly off because
Everything is
Seagull
off.
prices.
You just kind of go with it, right?
Yeah, they're just it's fake prices. It doesn't matter.
Every group pings the Z-Kill prices, so we can't just pretend it's not a thing.
I'm kind
right?
of like,
Well,
where
that's
did
a sub
where did
650 bill
Trainwreck?
BR.
Where did
So
it's not
Trainwreck
even worth
come from?
talking
I've like
True.
never heard of them until like 2 months ago.
They
Like, who the fuck are they?
They live in Thailand. They are the Miro and Rancer campers.
Are they like are they
They're-
like a are they like the new rebirth of like a previous alliance
No,
that I would know?
they've been
Okay.
maybe like if you remember Death Corps the Krieg.
Vaguely, not really. They
they're-
just
they're
seem
the
like they
Rancer
kind of came out of
campers.
nowhere, and they have like a lot of strength in low sec. Like maybe they're not the strongest, but like seems like they get good numbers and a lot of dreads
It's
and
the
stuff.
it's the Rancer campers. They're friendly with RSA if you know really strong alliances.
Yes, the Nixby.
like
Yeah, I remember
Drewski and
Sedition.
Co.
I thought Sedition like almost died, but it seems like they.
Sedition has died a few times. This is like the Mark IV, I think, of Sedition.
Yeah, I remember there was a period where they kind of helped us on 1 or 2 timers in Pure Blind, and they actually had like really good numbers. Like it was during one of the big fights in I forget where, Q5 or something. They like went and killed like 9 Asbel or 9 Ansies and like Cyclone fleets, and they had like 60 people in fleet, and I was like, whoa, like these people actually.
Yeah, this is like Sedition Mark IV or something, maybe Mark V. Big Ab's been responsible for killing them most of the time, like killing their alliance off most of the time. So
Man, this looks like hopefully there's like more spicy fights like this though. It makes it seem like Losec is kind of waking up a little bit. I don't know. It was kind of like in a deep
And is
slumber for a long time.
Is this faction warfare low sec or just regular low sec?
No, just regular low sec.
So this is
Faction warfare.
no, I'm just asking because there's like we got that stuff popping off. There was like Caldari advanced a level or something, so people are really actively engaged in that, which is great. We got
it's
low
nothing
sec.
to do with FW. It's not FW space.
No, I gotcha, but I'm looking at this, and this is something completely different. Still in low sec, and we got
Low
null
sec is gonna be hopping when the
Yeah,
Immortal
it's in
opens.
solitude, man.
And then we have all the fights in null sec. It really seems like this video game is alive now. Like, things are happening all of the time.
There's just enough mix-up of new things to do that get people excited again. It's getting them in, and then things get spicy. I think it's a good thing.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's good to see different groups.
Hold on, what is
instead
this
of like
BR
one or
that
two.
from Pochven with it looks like Strybog and Goons like died to the multi-boxers or something.
Yes,
Yeah, that's
Yes.
correct.
that is what happened. There were three.
Multi-boxers are
Dude,
very good.
there's someone multi-boxing like 15 VAR. What the fuck is this shit?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
one of the
Multi-boxers
expert
are-
dudes.
What I've heard is the multi-boxers are very good.
It was 3 people versus 17, and the 17.
That's like
was-
okay. I'm like content. We gotta talk, man.
So I
Here we go.
That
Back to
sounds
Pochven,
like
red
free
line.
Varner
Back to
kills.
Pochven.
Yeah,
I have some hot
no,
takes.
we don't gotta talk because I won't work with goons.
Do you guys want some hot takes? They might be
Yeah.
bad, but I want to hear what you think. So I do have a question. Are TFIs the best battleship right now?
Yes.
Why?
Cost, very tanky, good damage.
The
Okay.
tank and the damage and the cost is just like right in that like sweet spot.
Second
They're
question.
Not best on damage. They're
You're-
not best on tank.
Second. I've received sufficient answers. Thank you. Second question. Aren't TFIs basically bigger Munins at this point?
No.
Yeah.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
yeah.
No,
Based.
No.
Oh, I think
they're
so.
Okay.
battleships.
Right, but if they had
That's not what he's
ADCs,
saying.
they'd be big
They were
Munins.
no.
They
What
Why
are
Red
not?
Line is saying
speakers,
is for
they are not
doctrine
disengagable.
purposes, are TFIs like the
It's
new
their-
Munin, where it's what everyone
it's
is
the new
going to
Baltic.
If
use.
you're flying armor battleships,
Well,
TFIs are like a
it-
good place to be.
It just
they're the-
requires many of the same skills. How
They
are
are-
they different outside of
they-
that?
They are the replacement for Baltics.
I don't even agree with that, Firefox. I think they are eventually going to be the new Munin in that they are going to be the default choice for every block for most things because they're cheap. They have selectable damage, capless weapons, like good tank, good flexibility. There's nothing that they're really bad against. Like I think Redline's not asking are they literally Munins or do they literally do the same role as Munins, but for all intents and purposes for me, whereas Munins is just like if you don't know what else to form Munins, I think that they will be that. Like they're hands down the best pound for pound faction battleship, and like the other ones are not balanced to a place where the TFI is, like the other faction battleships. I think paladins and stuff are better, but not for the amount of ISK. Like you're going to spend 4 times as much ISK to be a little bit better than the TFI. So yes, they are.
So what you're
probably.
saying is the solution is simply don't be poor. Herd moving into
War,
Pochven.
war ends, Goons, Flood, Mimitar, Losec, faction warfare. TFIs for everyone.
I mean, there's other advantages too, right? Like we didn't talk about the alpha so much, but also the fact you can mix in T1 Tempest with them, which means you have a very low skill way to integrate battleships into your fleet, which is like super useful. The fact that their mids are open for additional E-War or an MGD, so you can incorporate escapability or additional tricks or like the SIG module. I can't remember what the fuck it's called.
Yeah.
Signature radius suppressor. You're gonna integrate
So-
some frog tech.
I do think CCP will need to touch them in some way because,
Mhm.
or the rest of the faction, because like there's a
and let's not
very
forget
big
they also
disconnect.
have drones. They also have spare high
Yeah.
slots. They also
There's not a battleship faction or T1 hull that really even comes close to them, really, for the cost and effectiveness.
Oh, it was for T1s, forget it, right.
T1BS is or
T1
really
BS. I
Can
think
the
we talked
supply
about
of
this
the
in the last
blueprints
show.
keep up with the popularity
Yes,
though?
easily. Yes,
Okay.
Minotaur faction warfare makes so many of them now, and the problem is like now we talked about this on the last show, but the T1 there's not really a role for them anymore, or it's very small because the TFIs are like a little more expensive, but like they're so much better than the T1 version that there's like barely a reason to use the T1 version. Like a T1
Well, outside
fully
of
fit
ISK.
battleship is like 400 to yeah, but it's not even that much cheaper.
They're not
like
even that much more expensive. Exactly.
yeah, it's
But
like
for the advantage you get, they're really not actually that much more ISK.
I think the build cost is exactly the same. So literally the only difference is obtaining the blueprint, and the more
Right.
like LP gets shit out, the smaller that difference will be until like I think that was a somewhat of a mistake. Like at least they should have made it take more like regular minerals or something. Like I get not having some weird stuff that you have to build that makes them crazy expensive, but like at least having just more regular minerals to some degree. But the problem is like a fully fit T1 Tempest is what 400, 450, and a TFI is like 700, 750. So it's like for 300 mil more, you get like 150k more HP, like better. Like it's better in every way, pretty much.
Especially
So.
when you come to the perspective of like lower SP players, right? Like you can get in a TFI with the same skills you need to fly a Tempest. It's basically just ISK, right? Versus like
ISK is a pretty big factor, though.
I have an
like a
additional
paladin, you need
hot
Stop.
take.
Battleship 5.
Ali, I need you to calm down. You're screaming. Even Twitch chat is
I turned
memeing you
him
about
way
screaming.
down. I turned him way down. Maybe it's just for me. I don't know. I'm sorry.
I'll turn my volume down. Sorry, this is my usual Discord volume.
No, you're good. I think these guys just have really sensitive ears. Either that, or I've been deafened.
Or Redline has turned you too much down, and Twitch can no longer hear you.
Can we nerf
Can
TFIs
confirm
and buff
I am a
Fargers?
sensitive little bitch.
All right,
buff Fargers. No thank
so
Farger fleet?
I have an additional. Yeah,
Oh
now
my
you're
God.
way lower than. Yeah, you should just turn your. You should just put it back.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyways, here's the I don't have him at 10% volume. I have him at 73% volume actually. But my additional question is, do you think that there could be a new group of battleships, like a heavy assault battleship?
No.
Please no. Please no. I think they just need to balance what
Please,
they have.
no.
We already have like
Yeah.
dozens of battleships. They just need to
Battleships
actually
also already have an ADC.
Make
It's called
make
single
Dominic's
radius
navies great
suppressor.
again.
Can we have better shield logi? Thanks.
Yeah, seriously.
Content I was talking about, we need like a shield version of the Nestor, in my opinion.
Yes.
Like,
Give this to me. I need it.
I don't know. Let's just
well,
go
like,
back
what's
to
wrong with that,
Maelstroms.
Firefox? I think the rep should be weaker than the Nestor because you get them immediately, but you know, and like, but the cap has to be pretty good because you give up
Is
your
it
mids. So
is it not like a
These are
lift?
fucking cringe.
Like there should be battleship logi and not just fucking cruiser
Is
logi.
it not like a fax? Isn't fax battleship logi?
Well, it's like a constant complaint that there should be some like.
you don't want to
mid
force
ground.
people to rely on facts. Like, it's
Yeah, you
facts
do.
should
No pores
be
allowed.
no, like you should be incentivized, but you should be
Logi
forced
So,
to do
are
it.
you just saying that you
Logi
don't want capitals out in space, Securitas? Because that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, you content destroyer.
I mean,
Yeah, what is going on here?
It's more of a problem in Pochven, honestly.
People bitch about how much I use fax, okay? So it's not because I don't like fax, but I do feel like there should be other options. Like if you want to bring some expensive like armor logi battleships, you should have the same option with shield. Like there's no reason armor should get special treatment when shield battleships are already used a lot less anyway.
Also, armor has 2 logi battleship options in the Nestor and the Leshak. It's unfair.
Yeah, well, okay, come on.
Okay, logi. Okay, per god.
Get baited.
I don't wait. What
content.
logi
At
ship are
that
we talking
scale-
about?
The Leshak.
There should be a shield.
Okay,
Oh,
we're not
no,
talking about
we
logi.
were
in case
saying
we're good. You guys
no.
can go back
We
to
were
talking.
saying
Any
there should be a
Corelli
shield
8 type
Nestor.
small armor repair enjoyers in the chat?
Me.
Electric repair guns.
Just battleship logi. Just that should be a thing.
But
At that
why
scale,
though?
like why is it needed?
It already exists.
The
It should
reason
be for
people
shield
want
too.
battleship
Well, I
logi
mean,
is because that
faxes are basically who has more dreads, right? Like who can have cap superiority on who can counter the faxes.
Clearly
Hold
not,
on.
because goons have just
No,
let
but there's a middle ground there.
run rampant.
Because the
I
people
want to
abuse
hear
What if you say,
Awali.
Wally, please stop talking for a second.
Awali, I want to hear what Villy was saying.
Thank you.
the issue is cruiser logi, even T2 cruiser logi, is seen as very killable and is very killable by most fleets. Faxes, on the other hand, are so unkillable that almost no fleets can kill them unless you have literally a full fleet, which creates this problem when you're fighting anywhere between 50, let's say 100 to between 0 to 100. Logi are strong enough that they can probably not be volleyed as much. Between 250 plus, you can fight fax, but between 100 to 250, there's no real core logi solution that enables you to play in a more interesting way. Right, you're in a situation where
And a lot of fights happen in that 100.
yeah,
to
and that is
250
probably
range.
the sweet spot, to be honest, for good fights in EVE Online. So people have tried to make the Nestor work so hard, right? Because it's the only real battleship logic, but it doesn't work. And
I mean, it kind of does. It's just
kind of, but
It requires a lot of organization.
It requires a lot of
Works in wormholes
organization,
and
and it's
Pochven.
also like gigadick expensive, which is a major issue. there is absolutely an argument that you could put together a logistics battleship-sized vessel. You would have to nerf it in specific ways, like make sure it has a significantly slower lock speed.
Has to be
You can't
fucking
give it,
slow too.
yeah, like you'd have to make it super slow, and you wouldn't be able to give it a ton of HP comparatively, but like you could give it definitely more than Guardians have, right?
Right, and it
And
couldn't be self-sustainable.
what do you mean self-sustainable?
Like the
Needs to cap.
yeah, like it needs to cap chain.
You could have it like relying on cap boosters or like I see what you're saying, and you're like, yeah, you're right. It can't be any Neros where it's like cap stable repping on
Right.
its own kind of thing. But I think there would definitely be room.
The range probably should be pretty short as well. I'd imagine.
I don't know about that one.
Nestor range is already
Well, like
dog.
not necessarily like Nestor short, but it shouldn't be like, it shouldn't be longer than T2 Logi, for example.
I definitely
like,
think there's a lot of room and opportunity to correctly fill that role that has never been particularly well done, if that makes sense.
But Billy, these things only make sense if like there's a more fleshed out battleship meta that isn't like, well, are you gonna fly a TFI or a Marauder? You know what I mean? Like, there has to be a little bit more choice, I think, so that if you make that change, it kind of makes sense. I personally think the TFI volley is a little bit too, like, it should have probably the same DPS, but it should be more focused on rate of fire, and probably it should have less armor HP. Maybe even like just change a low to a mid or something.
No, then it becomes useless like the Mac.
It's not useless. It's still the Mac.
What's
is like,
the
if you look
TFI's
at the
current bonus?
compared
an
to,
armor
like,
configure, like.
Look at a Mac
So,
compared.
the
The
Mac-
only reason a Mac is bad is if you compare it to a TFI. Like if you compare it to like an APOC Navy, the Mac is still pretty good.
You want to know why the Mac fell out of meta? It went from 7 lows to 6 lows, and it did not work anymore as an armor BS.
But
You
why?
would be
Because of the
changing
alternative, right? Because you have an alternative in the TFI that works better. But if there's no alternative, well, that's
you would
better.
just
Well, it
knock
wasn't
the
just that.
TFI
It was
out.
also that the Material then became like 1.3 bill, right?
Yeah,
like
it was
instead
also
of
more.
like
So
5 or 600
Firefox,
mil.
if you look at an armor Mac, it's actually not bad when you compare it to other non-TFI things. But it's just when you have a TFI which is cheaper and tankier, then it's hard to make that argument. But if you're comparing it to an APOC Navy or a Typhoon Fleet issue or any number of other battleships, the armor Mac is just fine. That's the problem. Is the TFI is like a standout.
The thing is, there are counters. The TFIs, it's just.
Well, it's not that there's counters to everything. The problem is that just in its class, it's like far and away, by far the best ship per pound, and there's like no competition among other faction battleships.
TFIs are already rate of fire bonused.
That's
yes,
kind
I'm
of
aware
how
of
it
that,
goes
but they still do too
for-
much volley.
That's kind of how it goes for all of the ships, though, right?
Not the TFI thing.
But it still gets a damage bonus, right? What if it got like,
It's
I
the
don't
exact
know, a
same as, like, a
fall off?
Mac.
What if it got a fall off bonus and a rate of fire bonus or something like that? And the rate of fire
then you'd
bonus was
have-
slightly higher.
It's a Macarial's fall off in damage.
Yeah, I mean,
it's the exact same thing. It's the exact same volley as any
the
other
problem with the
armor
TFI
battleship.
is the combination of insane tank and insane damage, like per volley. Like
It's an alpha doctrine, and alpha
Yeah.
doctrines are the best ones for
But
tie-dye.
the problem is you kind of get to have it all because it has a double damage bonus and a huge amount of HP. Like usually, so for
Yeah, it's
example,
the
like usually
Munin.
no, but usually the advantage to doing usually you have to make a deal with the devil to get high volley and high DPS and selectable damage, and that is usually you have to do a shield platform like a Maelstrom, right? But in the TFI, you basically get the damage of many shield platforms, which is pretty good, and the volley without having to put any damage mods because you get a double damage bonus in the hull. But the armor HP is also really good, so you don't have to, you can just focus on making your armor HP really big and not putting on damage mods. Like
So
it'd be
Macarial
different
is
if you
the
had to
exact
drop
same
2
sec.
slots. Right, but the Macarial, because of the slot layout, it's harder to make it as tanky, and it's also more expensive, and it's not a faction battleship. You're comparing it to other faction battleships, right? So the TFI balance would be different if you had to drop 1 or 2 damage mods to get the damage numbers you have now, right? Or you had to put in 1 or 2 damage mods, but you don't have to do that. You get it all for free. So that's the problem with the TFI.
And then you would end up with the init nav Pochven that does 180 DPS
Right,
and
but
just looks abysmal and
exactly.
you never wanna fly it.
You're making my point for me, Firefox, because the point with that init navpoc fit is that they should be putting damage mods on it for it to be good, right? They shouldn't be getting Like they're
Everything for
trying to
free.
overly tank it, right? And you should have to do the same on the TFI, but you don't have to. You get it all for free. You get to do max tank and you still get enough DPS. So
Right, there
it's
should
like,
be trade-offs and
yeah,
sacrifices
there's no
made.
trade-off on the TFI. You get it all.
It makes me wonder if the devs just had a blind eye to the fact that this thing could be armor tanked to hell and back, but that doesn't make any sense to me that they wouldn't realize that.
Yeah. If it was designed as a shield ship, and then like it would be less of an issue because you give up a lot of flexibility and a lot of tank, and like, then you need to put a cap booster. Like it changes things. But
And
if you get it
anytime
all
you
for
have
free,
5-7 for your slot layout, like 4 is kind of that like it works, but like once you're into 5, it's like you're into so many options. Like mid slots have so much value, right?
Especially being able to add an E-War on every single ship you've got on the field, that adds up massively.
because there's no choice. Like when you're fighting TFIs, like you have to either bring TFIs, or like maybe if the fight is the right size, you can bring paladins or something. But like there's not choice. Like there's no way you can bring Navpox and fight TFIs, for example. Like it's not a viable choice at all.
Paladins are the upship, basically.
Well, and that
No,
only
they are
works up.
downship.
And
No,
only with
they
the
work. They're
proper
just more
numbers,
expensive.
it makes sense. Yeah.
TFIs are the counter of the paladins.
Mm.
Yeah.
But paladins
certain
don't have the
skills.
mids, right? So
You can't. The thing is,
Maybe in low sec.
Paladins
Maybe in low
cannot
sec.
click the funny button.
Only
when
in low sec.
TFIs are gonna meme you because you'll just feed your paladins and not kill anything if triage is involved.
It's not quite how it works, but
Are these autocannon TFIs or?
Yeah.
I mean, it
Okay.
doesn't matter. A TFI has like 10k volley with Vardy.
But that's why you would use. Okay.
generally, if you're in a TFI, you're going to use artillery, unless you're in low sec and you know that you're going to fight something else that's close range.
Roger.
There's very little incentive to use autocannons, except for very niche situations.
Oh no! With the way of how just because it's
What did I say was wrong?
It's this way as well in LoSec now with the introduction of everyone bringing smart bombing nesters, the armor fleets. You can just refit your guns. You can have both configurations. You can just refit. You're not.
I don't think I've ever seen anybody in nullsec do. Like
Check the cargo red line.
Yeah.
These are two different
this is
things.
low
Right?
No, the cargo.
I am in the cargo. What am I looking for?
Oh, there we go. Yeah, there's the RD.
Yeah.
Yeah, the guns are in there. Yeah.
You can fit all the guns. Everyone's bringing nesters, the fleets now. Like it's not hard to be like.
It doesn't quite work like that in nullsec though. Like
you can still do
Just
it.
simply kill the nester.
Yeah, like
shoot the tankiest thing on grid by a long shot.
It's nullsec. It doesn't matter how tanky it is. It just insta dies. Like that's not.
Yeah,
like...
just.
I mean, there was a lot of testing on that early on, with a lot of fleet doctrines, like fitting, refitting in between sections of a fight or during a fight is really tough. So like, why
it doesn't work in nullsec? You can make it work in lowsec. In nullsec, like you just go with RD and maybe you have your autocannons at your stagings. But like, there's almost no situation in which nullsec is going to use autocannons. It's just like it's just not going to happen.
Works in all the other regions,
null is
though.
different because of like bubbles, and I mean there's a lot of other factors, but we're kind of getting sidetracked. I mean, the point is the TFI is just very, very strong in ways that the other battleships are not, and I think there probably needs to be movement in both directions. I think some of the other battleships need to be maybe very minimal. Like you have to be careful about power creep, but some of the other battleships could probably use a little bit of a loving hand, and the TFI needs to be pushed down a little bit. I mean, nothing like crazy, but it just like you need to force people to make choices with the TFI. Like, do they want damage or do they want tank? Because like right now they can kind of have it all.
So the purpose of my asking, hold on, I just want to. Go ahead, Billy.
I was just gonna say, I think the simple solution for the TFI is you just cut like maybe it's rate of fire bonus to like 5 instead of 7.5, and then maybe cut like 1,000 grid, and I think that might actually be enough.
And
no, but Billy, you still get way too much volley. Like that's the issue. Like you get like
you
shield
volley,
battleship
right?
levels of
but
volley.
You now are making choices for that artillery, right?
Maybe.
So the point to my asking was because so the TFI to me looks and feels like it's a lot like a Munin, and the reason I say that is because you're talking about the nerfs to it, and I want to make sure that we're clear. You're not saying that they should be nerfed like the Munin was nerfed, right? Just Basic balancing, scalpel, not hammer. If anyone from CCP is listening.
Percussive maintenance is the solution to all problems.
That
Hit
is
it with a
not their
fucking hammer.
style, dude.
I mean, I don't think it needs to be nuked into the ground. Like, it's just like a little bit too strong. It's not like
You hear
the
this
the
guy?
problem with the TFI is that you don't need to make a lot of choices when you make it. And all I want is that people have to make choices when they fit it. That's it.
This
They
is a
could solve this
prestigious no
entire
security
problem
FC.
by simply just walking up to the server and hitting the power button.
That's not a problem solving
People
method.
always ask for new ships, but we have so many ships to go and use. Just like, I don't know, make some of them like useful or add trade-offs.
Yeah.
Or make it so there isn't just one ship you want to use, right?
Well, and tell me if you like this. Like, one of the ideas I suggested last time was that like the Galente ship should get like the Eris treatment, where Galente battleships have like a roll bonus where like the plate doesn't give them extra mass, and then you give them like a little bit extra speed, maybe a little bit more DPS, so that the DPS numbers are like actually ridiculous. And then like the whole focus of a Galente battleship doctrine would be that you have the mobility to get on top of other battleships and like gank them with like 1700 DPS of blasters. But like outside of that range, you're not very effective. But at least like if someone brings TFIs and you warp, 100 Megathron navies on them, they're gonna fucking, they're gonna eat like, a lot of damage, like 170 DPS.
So,
bring
Jalen
back
brings up
10k
a really
a
good
second
point.
nanophones. That's all I
So,
have to say.
Jalen brings up a great point. What if we made other ships better instead of making TFIs worse?
TFIs are honestly in a good spot. It's other ships are really fucking shit.
Well, how would you do that though?
I don't fucking know.
Yeah, but that's how you get into power creep, right? Right. And right now, then you're
Yeah?
buffing everything to go up to. That's not
Good.
necessarily a good thing. Like,
Because then no one uses anything other than battleships, and then the rest of the ship scales get basically obsoleted.
There's nothing wrong with
the
using
only
battleships,
people
but-
using anything other than battleships right now is Arcadio's Soul and his Munin fleet. Let's be real.
I mean, people are still using hacks, and people it's hacks and battleships right now.
Cruisers are still a thing.
That's what it is.
You don't have to.
Bro,
touch,
Cyclone
like,
fleets are
here's the
busting,
thing,
okay?
Like, here's the thing, though. You don't have to touch like T1 holes. You can just touch purely pirate holes or pirate and like the
well, the T1
underperforming
holes
pirate
could
and
probably
faction
be a bit
holes.
cheaper. Like that would be their balancing factors. They,
Yeah,
Just
but,
make Dreads a billionisk and fit another billionisk and call it a day.
But you can just rework pirate and like the underperforming pirate and like navy faction battleship holes. Like things like
Honestly,
the
you should just
Foon
turn it into
fleet.
Dreadnoughts Online.
like my personal opinion is that a T1 battleship should cost the same as a hack, like fully fitted each one. They should be similar price. And that makes it so that T1 battleships are like kind of competitive in a different way if they're on that scale. Like if they're just slightly cheaper than the faction version, literally nobody will use them. But if they're like comparable to a hack, suddenly, you have way more people using battleships and they're actually like a convincing alternative to a hack. They have disadvantages, like they're immobile and, they take bombs and blah, blah, blah. They don't have good resistances, but then you get a lot more damage, a lot more range, a lot more, but right now, like they're not really an alternative to a hack. They're kind of like in this weird place where they're like more expensive than a hack and they're less mobile and they die pretty easy, but then they're like not as good as a faction battleship. So you get all the disadvantages without getting the advantages you really want for the price. So, there should be kind of like three different categories, where you can pick a hack for mobility or a T1 battleship for cost effectiveness or a faction battleship to like kind of, really bling out. But right now there's really only kind of two options. So it'd be nice to have more choice.
I have a related thought on that because, coming from a slightly newer player perspective, I remember still that, the training for getting into hacks, getting into tier 2 ships was quite a pain in the ass with the related skills that had to be trained up. Like, I know for everybody in the room, that's like years and years ago, but if we're trying to get new players into the game, into fleets, the more that we're using faction and tier 1 stuff instead of tier 2 solutions makes fleets more accessible for players, and I think that's a good goal to have. Want to make sure that tier 2 still has rules somewhere, but making it so that people can actually get in fleets in something other than a fucking vigil is, I think, a good goal to have.
I mean,
having options
I spent
is
an entire
by far the best thing you
fucking
can do.
12-hour fleet fight kicking vigils out of fleet so we could get more paladins in.
Yeah,
like
that's
the amount
a
of
good point.
paladins that we've stuffed into a fleet was ridiculous. Those numbers were stupid. I never thought I'd see that many marauders in a single fleet.
Yeah. But for
Gang.
anybody who's new to the game, that looks just like impossible to train up into
Also-
or afford.
It feels impossible to a new player.
Right.
And yeah,
Also,
and
there's
that's the
many
important bit.
regions of space, right? Like, not every ship has to be usable everywhere. But if we could like
Mhm.
use T1 battleships somewhere, that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, or just have
I
like
think
more
that
than one option.
We
That would
should
be nice.
restrict Pochven to Ishtars only.
I agree.
I have a question for you guys. It's
I don't have an
unrelated.
answer for you.
It's unrelated to battleships, Pochven, or any of the things we talked about so far because I'm looking for someone to raid. And I've stumbled upon a stream where apparently if you have your Twitch account linked to your in-game name and you watch the stream, this person will give you ISK for every hour that you watch the stream.
Oh God, Jesus Christ, dude!
Is that
That's a list.
legal?
Yeah, I mean, depends how he's doing it.
Technically,
There's so much gray
It's-
area with that shit, man. Like CCP gives way
reverse.
Literally just live with
I
like
gotta
a
check this out. I
Miku
see what you're
Miku
talking about.
anime doll dancing and a screenshot of a mining barge. That's this whole stream. 95 viewers. 95 viewers.
Yep. Welcome to Twitch streaming on Eve, dude. This has
What
always
the
existed.
fuck is
Here's
this?
the real question: is he just scamming people? Like,
It's the other thing, man. Like, there's.
Oh, dude, could you imagine?
yeah,
I mean,
that's why I just suggested it.
Yeah, I mean, like you can't do that on
This is
Twitch.
Eve.
But yeah, I mean, Eve, sure, you can do that, but Twitch, no.
Goodbye, T.
There are two separate sets of rules. So what CCP enforces and what Twitch enforces are two completely separate things.
Huh. How interesting.
Yeah,
well, I
it's
don't
weird.
think this is like view botting. Yeah, this is literally view botting.
Well, there's people who use that in
I'm gonna
replays as
report
well.
I'm gonna report this stream because that's weird and not fair. Like, I'm not gonna pay. Never.
Where are
Anyways,
you gonna report it to? Twitch?
yeah, I'm gonna report it to Twitch.
This is not Twitch
For what?
TOS.
This is against the terms of service of this website, sir.
What's the terms of service are they breaking?
This
gameplay.
There's no gameplay, and they are literally paying for views, which is view botting.
Wait, what gameplay is not there?
There is no gameplay.
It's just like static.
It's a static
screenshot
image.
background, right?
Oh,
It's-
okay.
yeah, so they're literally like not playing the game. They're just bribing for views. Yeah, that's kind of
Oh,
fucked.
Giga Chad. Okay.
No, very bad. Anyways, I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna send you guys there, but we are gonna wrap it up. I'm actually gonna send you over to Ghosty Gaming. So if you guys, before I do that, last week I made a post that said I wasn't gonna host Trash Talk Tuesday anymore because it's getting warm and stuff. That was a little bit preemptive. My bad. Show will continue as planned for the time being, and please forget I said what I said. And guys, floor is open for you if you want to answer some questions from Twitch chat, or if you want to talk about anything else. I don't care. Floor is all yours.
I'm on my phone, so you'll have to read questions if there are any.
Well, at some point it will not be Redline hosting, because when it gets warm, I'll be on the lake. That's where I want to be.
Like North Lake or South Lake, dude? That's the real question.
My lake.
Yeah.
I live on a lake.
Jelly.
It's a fantastic thing. I will take you to the lake. I'll stream the lake one day. All right. Well, I'm gonna
Yeah,
start.
I'm very pumped to one day team up with Contan to get rid of the multi-boxer menace.
Multi-boxer menace.
Can you invite me to that fleet just so that I can, just so I can get like like a glimpse, just
I
a
know I'm
little
still
glimmer.
I know I'm still an annoying newbie, but I'll do what I can.
Who was that old bomber guy that used input broadcasting a long ass time ago, like prior to input broadcasting being an issue?
Udell?
Udell, that's it.
Udell, okay, yeah. I was about to say that describes several different people.
Well, sure, yeah.
that could be
There was
like
one,
10
there was one guy
different
in Goonstorm. I was thinking of the
Well,
Goonstorm guy, and that's
I'm pretty sure like
I
every
knew
major
exact- I knew
alliance had their
exactly
own
who you're
like
talking
input
about.
broadcasting bomber dude.
Yeah.
And then
That
IS
totally
Boxer
wasn't
got-
input broadcasting, of course.
And then IS
Yeah,
Boxer
yeah,
got
right.
banned, and he gave his accounts to Kunmi. He quit the game and gave his accounts to Kunmi.
Is Kudmi the one that's in Volta that's definitely not input broadcasting, but like
Kunmi is
Maybe
a
Shoshin?
G-Stole person.
AKA Frefron?
He's big time gooner.
Yeah, I know Xiao. He's streamed for me before. I've seen and heard the crazy keyboard clunking. He's not input broadcasting. He's just insane.
you can like set up clients really creatively. Like miners will do it.
Mhm.
But like man, like in a bomber setting that's like
All right, gang. It has been real fantastic Tuesday fun. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. We'll see you next week. Please have a great night, a wonderful rest of your week, and make sure you tune in Friday for Trash Talk Friday.
Basically, like the Omega Gold stacking. Like the big thing with IS Boxer getting banned is you can't crop sections of your client anymore. So you would see the streams of with people that didn't input broadcast, but they use IS Boxer. They would have basically all their like actual like their hotbars for all their clients stacked on the screen.
Well, right, you can do that with Windows though. If you put them in a diagonal downwards, you can.
Oh yeah.
You can definitely do that.
Gold stacking, yeah, but what I'm saying, you can't crop parts of the screen anymore, like the client screen anymore.
Oh, I see. Like with IS Boxer.
That was the big thing with IS Boxer, and that and the input broadcasting, obviously, but like outside of the input broadcasting, it was the cropping that people used a lot.
Yeah, I've seen some really well done multi-boxers, like mostly for mining though, like never anything that required like movement, right?
So I know when the Pochven multi-boxers were really getting at their peak, there's two people in Horde who just like people were accusing them of multi-boxing of input broadcasting, and the dudes were like, "No, look, we can do basically not as efficiently, but we can do pretty similar setups. They're not input broadcasting; it's just turbo autistic."
Yeah, those guys are definitely turbo autistic, and I don't say that as an insult. It just is what it is. Like they're just really fucking good. That's Dora and Ninja Baby, right?
Yeah.
I don't know about Dora Ninja Baby, but I know with some of them, what they would do is they would do a mix of input broadcasting and a mix.
Dora and Ninja Baby are a lot of things, but they are not input broadcasters.
If you,
to their credit.
but
They're
you
just
can do
incredibly fucking difficult to deal with. They're assholes, and they will punish you relentlessly because they have nothing better to do.
But when you start doing PvP related things with multi-boxing, it becomes a lot more complicated, just because of the overview, and then your modules need to be clicked.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was. There was a fucking goon guy. Everybody used to in goons just defend him. He's like, his keyboard's clunking. He's doing this, and I'm like, that's not how it fucking works, my man. Like, he used to like input broadcast. Like we'd have logs that would be very like obvious.
The thing with
Wrathborn, I think it was, or something like that.
Wrathbond.
Talking about like the researcher guy or whatever.
Oh yeah, it was researcher.
That is Wrathbond. Yeah, that's Wrathbond. You're right.
Yeah, like because what we used to do is like he would be running like 5 different clients, right? Like he'd be running like his DPS client, his Lynx client, his fucking Logic client, his whatever else. Like so, like yeah, he was running a couple different clients, but he was input broadcasting the different clients to different fucking things. So it
was harder to see.
Hey, Villy, thanks for coming.
Where it gets suspicious is if they're doing anything outside of drone comps. If they're running more than like 7 or 8, is when it starts getting a little suspicious.
Yeah, because at least with drone comps you can set up a trigger and it's super simple.
Yeah.
Yeah, this guy was running up. This guy was running his own 35 to 40 man fucking Munin fleet.
Jesus.
Yeah, that's input broadcasting.
Yeah, like,
I know that
we're aware. I can assure you.
Yeah, Shao of Volta was doing 15 keys for a while, but like I knew him really well, and I'd actually he'd stream for me while he was playing. I could see he was not input broadcasting because I could see him flipping through Evo preview, doing everything manually. It was just a lot of fucking work.
Wait, how many accounts is this?
He had like 15 or 20. So he'd have a couple boosters, a fleet of Kikis. He was doing Pochven stuff. But like
yeah, that's somewhat manageable. Like I think mentally your brain starts breaking at like 10, 12. Like
yeah.
My brain breaks at 1.
Like doing things that are basically the exact same thing on every account.
Right. And he was very skilled at that. But it